Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
It is roster cut down day, and so within the hour, the Titans will have made all their cuts. Been keeping up with it. Got my little roster right here in front of me and been making, but this guy, got to cross him off the list. Feel kind of bad. And let me just, again, get this out here off the very top so that nobody asks this or nobody thinks that we're insensitive or anything crazy like that. This is a terrible day for so many of those players. And for some of these guys, it's their life's work. And they have dreamed of being a football player. And today, the coach, the GM, somebody is going to tell them, you ain't that good. And I hate that for those guys. And what the GM used to say on the program is he used to say that he used to tell players, all this means is that you can't play on this team right now. It does not mean that you can't play on this team down the road. It does not mean that you can't play on another team. But it just means you can't play on this team right now. I remember one time I went through a breakup. This was years ago. I went through a breakup, Ian, and all I could think to myself was, because it was, it could have been something down the road. Who knows what? I was like, well, it just right now can't be on this team. So let's keep that in mind with all of this. The breaking news, those where we're starting. Breaking within the last hour, the Titans have acquired Ernest Jones, the inside linebacker from the LA Rams. And boy, do I have feelings on this one. So when it comes to hockey trades, I have a rule. If I haven't heard of this player, then that guy must suck. I've always believed that, right? Like, I remember when the Predators traded for Kyle Turris, and I was like, who is this guy? Oh, no, Jared, he's good, trust me. They traded for Mikhail Granlund. I'm like, I watch the Predators play Minnesota every year. I've never heard of this guy. No, Jared, trust me. Both guys sucked. So let me just be completely upfront with everybody. I'd like to think I'm a good football fan, Ian. I mean, I don't know if there's a way to qualify how much football one watches or how much one pays attention to football. I'd like to say that I'm a pretty big football fan.
I'd say that's fair. Maybe not college football.
I've never heard of this guy before. Like yesterday or whenever he requested it, or whenever the Rams said that he was requesting a trade, and then he came out and said, I never requested a trade, meaning the Rams were trying to get rid of him. From that moment on, that was the first I had ever heard of this guy. Like, I've never heard of this guy before. And yet, I've been looking at the stats for the last hour. This guy's pretty good. And again, the reported nature of the deal is the Titans are getting Ernest Jones and a sixth in exchange for a fifth. Now, I know for a lot of you guys, that's a really, really big trade because you guys celebrated those 5th and 6th round picks that the Titans got for Kevin Byard last year like it was a first round pick. But for us who live in the real world, a 5th round pick is not that big of a deal. Would I like to have my 5th round picks? Sure. But again, it's a 5th. It ain't a second. There's a big difference between the two. But by every metric, this guy is a good player. And that's why I'm sitting here, and all I know is what the stats tell me, what the internet has told me in the last 30 minutes. Because again, I don't know this guy. I've never heard of this guy. And yet, all I can think of off the top of my head is the wisdom the old man once gave us. And it was, guys are only available for one of 4 reasons. There's a reason Patrick Mahomes is not available. You can't get Patrick Mahomes. But guys are available for one of 4 reasons. Number 1, bad player. Well, I don't think this guy's a bad player. He's 24 years old. He started at inside linebacker for the Rams last year. He had 145 tackles. He had 4.5 sacks. His PFF grade of 82.1 was better than Roquan Smith's PFF grade of 80.1. So I don't think he's a bad player. The second reason the GM used to say guys would be available, bad guy. Well, I've never heard of this guy before. And if you're somebody who causes problems in the NFL, especially in a big market like LA, I think we would have heard about it. He also was voted a team captain. So he's a team captain for the Rams. He's a solid player. He's gotten better each of the 3 years statistically that he's been in the NFL. The third reason the GM said guys would be available is because they're injured. This guy played 15 games last year, 17 games the year before that, 15 games the year before that. And the fourth reason is money. And Ernest Jones makes $3.1 million, which is basically the amount of money that you just gave away today, just lit on fire, flushed down the toilet by acquiring Caleb Farley or by cutting Caleb Farley. I mean, it's Mason Rudolph money we're talking about for a starting inside backer. So people have asked me, Ryan Porth's texted me, my friends have texted me, people say, Jared, what do you think of this trade? Well, on paper, and all I can go by is what's on paper. On paper, this looks like a great trade. I'm serious. Like, I'm trying to figure out what is the catch here. Because there's got to be one, right? There has to be something that we're missing. Why would the Rams? And it's not like the Rams. I looked at their depth chart earlier today. It's not like the Rams have Ray Lewis at one inside linebacker and Brian Urlacher at the other inside linebacker. And yet the Rams are the ones that wanted to get rid of this guy. It's not even, hey, Ernest Jones went to the Rams because he's making $3.1 million this year and he's a UFA at the end of the year. And so Ernest Jones went to the Rams and is demanding a new contract, and the Rams won't give it to him, and he won't play until he gets his new contract, so they have to trade him. I don't think that's it. Because again, when they put out there, Pelissero or whoever it was said that the Rams were looking at, that the Rams were allowing him to look for a trade, I thought to myself, okay, well, probably, I don't know who this is, but he'll look for whatever. But he came out and said, I didn't ask for a trade. Normally, when we're talking about trading a guy, it's the other way around. The team's like, oh, God, we just want to keep him for one more year, $3.1 million. He's a good player. He's a solid starter for us. He's reliable. We want him, and he wants a new contract, and we're not going to be able to pay him the contract, and we don't want him to be mad, and they don't want to be. So somebody help me. Somebody help me. Is the only thing the money? Because again, $3.1 million is not a lot of money in the world of the NFL. And the Rams also just gave up, that big contract for Aaron Donald's off the books because Aaron Donald's retired. So I haven't watched any tape on Ernest Jones. This isn't a guy that I am familiar with because of his career. Now, granted, he doesn't play in the Titans division, and I don't seek out Rams games. I watch the Rams when they're on TV, which is quite often, but I don't seek out Rams games. I'm not like, the Rams and the Cardinals this weekend, we got to watch it. So I'm not the most educated Rams fan. In fact, Ian, I was thinking through my contacts in my head, and I'm like, who do I know who covers the Rams? Like, surely I know somebody who covers the Rams, right? But I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Well, it's pretty far out there, California.
So, again, I mean, on paper, this looks great. On paper, again, he had a Pro Football Focus grade of 82.1, a run defense grade of 90. He missed 11 tackles, according to Pro Football Focus. And again, at $3.1 million, what am I missing? This seems like Aziz, but maybe even better than Aziz. And Aziz is making $11 million a year for the Texans.
Isn't it about money? His contract? There's
$3.1 million?
Jeremy Fowler tweeted this on the 25th at 7:50 a.m. Sources, Rams have granted linebacker Ernest Jones IV and his agents permission to seek a trade. Jones, a 2025 free agent, is LA's defensive play caller with 145 tackles and 4.5 sacks last year. Sides discussed an extension, but with no progress, Rams open to trade.
But then he came out. And I think the Rams are going for the Super Bowl this year, right? Like, I don't think the Rams are the 49ers, but I do think the Rams look at themselves as contenders. I mean, you don't have that old peep-pop at quarterback if you don't think you can win.
Sure.
So somebody help me. Maybe it's the money, I guess. But this might be the single best move the Titans have made just on paper. Again, because I don't know this guy, and everybody told me Kyle Turris was good, and everybody told me Mikhail Granlund was good, and those guys freaking sucked. So maybe he sucks too because I don't know him and I don't watch him and I don't. But again, on paper, this might be my favorite move of the offseason. This might be my single favorite move the Titans have made this offseason. And it comes on roster cutdown day. Again, the Titans have acquired Ernest Jones from the Rams. He makes $3.1 million. I don't care. The cap's fake anyways. $3.1 million. And the guy for a 5th-round pick, and they get a 6th in return. And the guy has a higher Pro Football Focus grade than Roquan Smith. This might be the best move I think they made. So we're starting on that, and we are to your phones. 615-737-1025. We'll keep you up to date on all the breaking news as well. 615-737-1025 here in the here on the program. First, though, let's talk about FanDuel Sportsbook. That's right. I absolutely love FanDuel Sportsbook. It is my official sportsbook app. You've heard me talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, right now they have something a little different for you because now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and yes, you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/JGM to download America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/JGM to download America's #1 sportsbook and my official sportsbook app. 21 and over and present in Tennessee. Full price of NFL Sunday Ticket will be automatically charged seasonally after free trial. No refunds. Terms, restrictions, and embargoes apply. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
I don't think this was, well, partially it could have been for the Chance Campbell, but they are not sold on Jack Gibbons. That's why you go out and make this move, because this guy's a player. He's a guy that fit well, obviously, at one point in time with the Rams. He was part of their Super Bowl winning team. He played a lot within the last 3 years. This is a move, not necessarily for Chance, for Campbell, but it's a move to me that they're not sold on Jack Gibbons being their inside backer as a starter. That's what this has nothing to do with. I don't think this has as much to do with Campbell than it is Jack Gibbons.
I agree. And I got to tell you, this is for the Titans, of all the moves the Titans have made, the only thing that could make me happier today than this Ernest Jones trade. And again, I have no idea who this guy is until 2 days ago when I saw that he might be on the move in a trade. And then he said, I didn't request a trade. The only thing that could make me happier is if the Titans acquired a right tackle. Like, I just keep, again, this is all on paper. This is not based off of watching Rams games and everything else. But I do have a thought before I get to your phones, and I just want to share it quickly. I compared him to Roquan Smith. I think, Ian, Roquan Smith is probably the best inside linebacker in the NFL.
He's up there, yeah.
If he's not the best, he's the second best.
Warner
or the third
is up
best.
there, right?
Sure. But I would argue that Roquan and Warner, while they're probably different players, they are in the same class.
Sure. Okay.
So just comparing the two, on raw stats alone, Ernest Jones had 145 tackles last year. Roquan Smith had 158 and played one more game. So that's roughly the same amount of tackles. In fact, I don't even know what the per game is, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's like one extra tackle for Roquan Smith per game. Roquan Smith had one interception. Jones didn't have an interception. Roquan Smith had 1.5 sacks. Jones had 4.5 sacks. Roquan had 84 solo tackles. Jones had 74 solo tackles. So Roquan Smith is better, which it's fine, but not by a lot statistically. According to Pro Football Focus, Ernest Jones had a grade of 82.1. Roquan Smith, 80.1. Run defense, Ernest Jones had a grade of 90. Roquan Smith had a grade, run defense, 90. Pass rush, Ernest Jones, 78.2. Roquan Smith, 60.1. Now, the difference here is that Roquan had a coverage grade of 85.5, and he had a coverage grade of 62.5, which tells you that when they get into those, third and 11s and things like that, the linebackers are coming off the field, and Jamal Adams is going in the game. Roquan missed 11 tackles last year, according to Pro Football Focus. Jones missed 11 tackles last year, according to Pro Football Focus. Again, I'm not saying you acquired Roquan Smith, but you acquired somebody that's got a lot of Roquan Smith-like production, and you gave up a 5th and got a 6th back. Somebody tell me what I'm missing. Somebody tell me what is going on here and why the Titans just got a $3.1 million player who, again, he's not Roquan Smith, but he's got some Roquan Smith-like production for a bag of peanuts. I must be missing something here. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, 615-737-1025. Daryl is going to get us started today on the phones. Thank you for calling. Daryl, go ahead.
Hey, what's up, man? I can't tell you what you're not getting, but I can tell you what you're getting, kind of. I'm a Gamecock alum, but I watched him during his Carolina years. He's not super fast. He's super quick. He's always in the play, and he's got a motor. He never stops. So I think the Titans are going to be real happy to get him. And he just like I said, his biggest asset, he's fundamentally sound, and he never stops. He's always leading the play. May not make the tackle, but he's going to be around the tackle. And of course, I am biased, but I liked him as a Ram. From what I understand, there's some little problem in the locker room. I don't know I'm not an insider. I don't know anything, but the dude just needs a change of scenery, and he's getting it. Titans fans are going to be real happy with this guy. I can't wait to watch him in the Titans.
I got to know more about this locker room thing. Daryl, thank you for the call. But he was voted a team captain. So I have a hard time believing that he was a bad dude. I mean, I have a really hard time believing that he was a bad dude. If he's voted team captain, the locker room, they hate him. Who'd they vote for team captain? Him. They don't, that doesn't seem to compute. I do have a hard time with the college scouting report. Again, that was 4 years ago. I'd like to think the guys get better 4 years when they get into the NFL. But then here's the other side of this. Well, you know what? Let's get more of your phones. 615-737-1025. Randy texts in, and D-Mace texted me something similar, saying, I'm thinking the Rams don't value the inside linebacker position enough to pay him. They consider it a position they can plug and play based on their defense. Not sure what position it is, the Titans, but they may not have much value at other positions. For the Titans and Denard Wilson's defense, the Titans greatly value the inside linebacker position enough to pay for it. Well, again, the team that Denard Wilson comes from was Roquan Smith's team. And we know how important that position was to the Ravens, especially last year when they had Smith and Patrick Queen. And it was a very big deal to the Ravens. But I also don't understand the money element here. I understand if he was Hassan Reddick and he was like, I'm not coming if I don't get a new contract. I don't get that. But he wasn't doing that. He wasn't sure. I mean, everybody wants a new contract, but it wasn't like he was threatening not to play. And again, I think the Rams consider themselves Super Bowl contenders. I consider them fringe Super Bowl contenders, but we have to remember, in the NFC, the AFC, you've got to go through Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers, CJ Stroud. Like, if you want to get to the Super Bowl, you got to beat three of those guys in a row. Granted, I'm not sure Rodgers will get to the playoffs, but you got to beat three of those guys in a row if you want to go to the Super Bowl. You got past Tom Brady and Lamar Jackson, but you couldn't get past Patrick Mahomes. In the NFC, they don't have that. The best quarterback in the NFC might be Dak Prescott. Now, they have some very good teams. San Francisco's very good, and Detroit's very good, and solid teams in there. But I view the Rams as a team that looks in the mirror and says to themselves, no, we can compete for the Super Bowl. We just need Cooper Kupp to stay healthy, to go with Puka Nacua. We got Matthew Stafford at quarterback. We got Sean McVay calling the plays. We drafted Jared Verse and Braden Fisk to replace Aaron Donald. No, we can do this. And so I don't understand why the Rams would value the difference between the 5th and the 6th round pick. The Rams don't care about picks. What are we talking about? I don't see why the Rams would care about the difference between the 5th and the 6th round pick in order not to say, hey, we're going for the Super Bowl. We're going to play him on this $3.1 million, and then he's going to leave at the end of the year. The same way I feel about a lot of guys that are on the team right now on one-year contracts. Like, they're probably going to leave at the end of the year because it's what happens every year. I don't see why the Rams wouldn't just play him. And again, like I said, I looked up the Rams depth chart. I don't know who the backups are. To see these names, I'm like, I don't know who this is. So it's not like all of a sudden they're plugging Derek Brooks into that position, Keith Brooking into that spot. So if it is the money thing, good God, $3.1 million for the Rams? Unbelievable. I mean, again, I think this is great. On paper, I think this is great. Okay, so somebody texted into the text line that Ernest Jones had a knee issue and was sidelined in camp, And Joe Retro texted me and said, not a locker room issue. A knee issue flared up. The Rams won't give him the next deal, and they have a rookie that they like. But there is one other little element to this. Because the Titans got a guy that on paper looks to be a very good football player. Very good football player. Very little money. Again, a knee that flared up. Then again, the Titans have luxurious needs. So it's not like, we're worried about knee injuries around here. But there's another element of this that I cannot get over. We'll do that next. We'll get to your phones as well. 615-737-1025, Stillman & Company. I think people were coming to the show today expecting me, Ian, to go off on this trade and hate it or something like that.
Well, surprise, surprise.
Surprise is right. 615-737-1025 here on our program, Stillman & Company, 1025-1063 The Game.
I just think this was to upgrade their defense because they're not sure at the inside linebacker position. I think they like Kenneth Murray. They like what they saw in preseason. Jack Gibbons didn't stand out in preseason. He wasn't bad, but he didn't stand out either. They want an impact player at that inside linebacker position. You know why they want an impact player? Look who the defensive coordinator is. Who did the defensive coordinator have in Baltimore? He had 2 stud-ass linebackers in Baltimore in the inside. That's what he's trying to replicate here in Tennessee. And Jack Gibbons doesn't fit that mold, I think.
That was Derek earlier today. Boy, Derek was railing against Jack Gibbons, huh?
Sometimes a little bit sounds like, yeah, maybe.
I mean, let me say this. Jack Gibbons is a backup. He's a backup. And he's going where he needs to go. The bench, where backups need to go. I got into it today with somebody on Twitter because I saw all these guys getting cut or whatever. Matthew Jackson got cut. And I'm like, oh, Matthew Jackson got cut. I'm like, the Titans don't have 53 NFL caliber players. And somebody said to me, they go, well, what do you mean by that? You're already mad. You're already. I'm like, guys, Jalen Duncan is not a backup tackle in the NFL. Jalen Duncan is a practice squad caliber player. But what the Titans have spent way too long doing, really for 3 years since the Cincinnati game, is the Titans have been taking backups and convincing themselves they're starters and taking practice squad players and convincing themselves they're backups. And that's how you end up with Malik on Sunday Night Football. And so Gibbons is a backup. And inside linebacker is not the most important position in the league. So I kind of let it go like I let tight end go. The Titans don't have a starting tight end, but I let it go. And now they make this move, and Gibbons goes exactly where he should go, which is the bench. Like, that's where he needs to be, and he's a solid backup. But that's what he is, a backup. And I love it. I love this idea of the Titans, not saying they're finally doing this because, again, who's playing tight end, who's playing right tackle, who's playing right guard, but the Titans are putting starters, in some cases in starting positions, and then they are putting backups by this move in a backup position. And this means that a guy like Otis Reese, who, all the respect in the world to him, but he's probably a practice squad player, probably ends up on the practice squad. That's the way it should be. So a lot of you all have texted into the text line, and I'm just going to read the latest one, where it is, I have refrained from using the term let Rand cook, but he is absolutely cooking with this move. And a lot of people say, what do you think of Rand now, Jared? What do you think? This is a great move. This is a great, on paper. Again, I don't know if he's any good or not. On paper, this looks like a really good move. And you know me. I vetoed the Julio Jones move. You guys bitched. I vetoed the Caleb Farley move. You guys bitched. When I don't like something, I say I don't like something. Trust me, you know that. I like this move. If anything else, that should scare all of you out there in Bobo land, is you guys should be like, holy crap, Jared Stillman likes this move. You know, we celebrate when Jared hates a move. We celebrate it. We're like, yeah, Jared hates the J.C. Latham pick, so he must be Trent Williams. So that should scare you. But here's the other thing with this I can't get over. Is I struggle with this idea. It's kind of like L'Jarius Sneed. Nobody else wanted him. I mean, again, I keep saying this. I know Pro Football Focus ratings say Tua's the best quarterback, and they say Aaron Brewer's a good center, so we have to take it all with a grain of salt. But his Pro Football Focus grade was better than Roquan Smith's. His tackle numbers in one last game, kind of similar to Roquan Smith's. Roquan Smith, 158 tackles over 16 games. Ernest Jones, 145 over 15 games. I mean, I think that this, on paper, $3.1 million, he's a UFA at the end of the year. It's not like he's not willing to report if you don't give him a contract like Hassan Reddick. This looks like a great trade on paper. So why were there no other teams when the Rams clearly wanted everybody to know he was available? The Rams go to the insiders and they say, yeah, we've given Ernest Jones the ability to search out a trade. And then all of a sudden you see him come out and say, I didn't do that. They did that because they wanted other teams to know, hey, pick up the phone and call us. The same reason that Mary Kay Cabot, who's covered the Browns for an eon, is putting out there that the Browns are listening on Jameis Winston because they want somebody to pick up the phone and call them on Jameis Winston. So why was nobody else? This isn't a good trade. Like, this isn't, I know you guys, if the Titans made this trade, would say, oh, this is so good. Because you guys do that with every trade the Titans make. Whether it's Kevin Byard for a bag of footballs or L'Jarius Sneed for a future third, you guys, every trade they make's good. They could trade Jeffrey Simmons. And they could get Zach Wilson in return. And you guys would be like, oh, great trade. But this does look like a really good trade. And I think about Atlanta. Again, I don't know who's inside linebacking for Atlanta. Ian, does anybody come up to the top of your head when you think of inside linebacker for Atlanta?
No, I'll check their depth chart real quick.
I don't even know who their inside linebackers are. But, I mean, they spent all their draft picks and free agent money on quarterbacks. So I don't know what's there. And Raheem Morris is the coach, and he was the D coordinator last year with the Rams. And they weren't interested in that. So,
I don't know. Troy Anderson and Caden Ellis with 2 S's.
Who are these people?
That's what they say for inside linebacker for Atlanta.
And they weren't interested in this guy when he played for the coach?
I guess not.
Sometimes I think people take my skepticism and they think that it's an act. They think that it's like, oh, Jared's just looking for the negative. He's just always trying to be negative, and that's not true. I love the Titans. I don't know how many other people would get on the air and sit there and say, I love this team, and I just bought these outrageously expensive PSLs because I love my team, and I'm rooting for my team, and I want to be wrong about the state of my team and all this stuff. I don't know how many people would do that. And I don't know how many people on the radio in town actually do root for the Titans. Robbie doesn't root for the Titans. Joe doesn't root for the Titans. Chase roots for the Titans. I don't know if Big Joe roots for the Titans. I think Willie and Derek root for the Titans. And obviously I root for the Titans. But, I mean, you know me. I love this team. And I think what happens is a lot of people take my skepticism and they think it's just pure negativity and they think it's for the show and everything. And that's not true. Like, I'm skeptical in life. I told TD during the TD Power Hour last week during a break, we were just chatting because TD had his Doc Gooden hat on and his strawberry and Gooden shirt. And I was telling TD, I was like, I truly believe that the reason that I am such a skeptic when it comes to everything, that I am a skeptic, is simply because I was a fan of the Atlanta Braves in the 90s, and every year they had a great team, and every year they got to the playoffs, and every year except 95, they didn't win the World Series. So it was almost like I heard it so many times about, oh, this team, they're so good, they're this, they're that, and then they get beat in the division series by the Houston Astros, and it's like, well, it is what it is. That's screwed. I'm going to read this text on air. Bob says, Ian, I'm starting to think Jared is Q because there's always a conspiracy.
Oh, boy.
I mean, I'm just saying. The GM used to tell us a guy only becomes available because of one of 4 reasons. Either A, bad player. B, bad guy. C, injured. D, too much money. I mean, apparently he's got a little bit of a knee flare up. I'm not an expert on this, so I don't know what that means. But the Titans obviously don't care about knee injuries given their cornerback position. So whatever. But it doesn't sound like that's a big deal. And the money thing, he's only making $3.1 million this year. If he was Hassan Reddick and saying, I won't play, that's a different thing. But he's not saying that. He's just, I want a new contract. We can't work out a new contract. So we're going to let you go look for a trade. I don't want to trade. We're going to do it anyways. That's what this is. This looks like a great trade. And I'm just trying to think, like, you're telling me there wasn't another team? Didn't Buffalo come out and isn't Matt Milano hurt in Buffalo?
Yes, he is.
Why isn't Buffalo on the phone for this guy?
I don't know.
Now, TD texts me and says, and I think this is a very good question. TD says, honest question. How do you know no other team showed interest?
They could have.
They could have.
Yeah.
But again, I'm taking the return as kind of the.
Who wouldn't want to pony up for that?
Well, like.
If you really want them.
You gave up a bag of peanuts. A 5th round draft choice is not a big deal on its face. It's not. Like, I know we love the draft and but it's not. Cedric Gray was your 4th round pick. The guy hasn't played a single snap. And so it doesn't matter. But you get a 6th back. Like on these charts, the values of 1st round picks range from like 3,000 to 650. The value when you get in the 4th and the 6th, the 5th and the 6th round, the value is like 21 versus 13. It doesn't matter. It does not matter at all. And so that's why I assume these other teams didn't pick up the phone. I could be wrong about this. I mean, the whole league could have called the Rams, and the Rams could have said, you know what? We want him to go to the Titans. I don't think that's what happened, but it could. So who knows? Maybe I should just not cry over found money, because this is what it feels like. It feels like the Titans, when we talk about what they did in free agency, when they added Lloyd Cushenberry and Tony Pollard and Calvin Ridley and L'Jarius Sneed and Chidobe Awuzie and Jamal Quandre Diggs, Kenneth Murray, like when we get excited about some of the moves they made, this fits right in there with with probably the best of them. Like, in all seriousness, probably the best of them. All right, more your phone, 615-737-1025, plus the latest as to who's made the team, who hasn't made the team. And we're right to your phone, Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game.
What you're saying sounds like an NCAA tournament committee who's watched all the way through, been locked in. But by the time you get to the last day, your decisions have essentially been made. Now you just have to see if you have to do any changes based off of injury or different things.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, the work, we're never not working.
Right.
You know, even on this trip, you know, guys are working. We've met and we've talked and had conversations. Callie and I had conversations on the plane yesterday. We had conversations in pregame about who, you know, guys that could come available. So we're never not working. So you don't get to a point in the process where while we're cutting our team, we're trying to panic and rush back to get other teams figured out. But we've already done that work and put the work in. And, you know, you just sit back and kind of see how it all's going to unfold.
That was Rand Carthon the other day. He's right. They're working because they worked a great trade, at least on paper. It's hard for me, Ian, because I never heard of this guy until yesterday.
I haven't really heard of him either, but he's kind of younger, so didn't get his second contract yet.
All these stats and everything else, like, again, I keep saying on paper because I have no idea if this guy's any good. But it's like,
we don't watch the Rams a lot, right?
They're on TV quite a bit.
Maybe. I mean, he's an inside linebacker, so he doesn't get a lot of hype.
How many primetime games do you think the Rams are getting this year?
This year?
5?
I'd say maybe 4.
Okay. I mean, like, we watch the Rams. We don't watch them. Like, they're not the Cowboys, but they're also not the Commanders in terms of how much we don't watch them. But this does seem great. I can't knock it at all. And I'm not trying to, other than, is there something behind door number 2? Now, Joe sent me a text, and I have to feel like Joe is talking to the Rams guy who covers them.
There is a piece on The Athletic that they put out about this.
I actually know who covers the Rams. It's Jordan Rodriguez. She's great.
And Joe, Jordan, and Diana Rossini are all listed in the byline here.
Diana liking my tweets today must have shown up on the For You page. Joe says he didn't say he didn't want to trade. He didn't want it out there that he asked for a trade. Something
that he tweeted it out and then deleted the tweet. We have a tweet deletion.
So the tweet that he didn't ask for a trade was deleted.
Correct.
Well, so then he said it. I mean, just because you delete it doesn't mean you don't say it. If you say something that you regret and you call somebody the next day or you call somebody right then and say, I don't know why I said that. That was so disrespectful of me to say. I am so sorry I said that. You still said it. And that's the way I feel about a deleted tweet. Let's go to with the right to delete my own tweets, though I don't delete them very often. Let's go to your phones. Let's go to Jake. Oh, by the way, let me just run through this. As of right now, reportedly, here's who's been cut. Caleb Farley, Malik Willis has been traded. Mason Kinsey, Keaton Ellis, Matthew Jackson, Anthony Kendall, Jaron Christian, Lachavius Simmons, TK McClendon, and Quentin Bohanna. So that is who all has been cut so far. No surprise there. I actually put together kind of like a 2-deep depth chart today. And I went through all of it. The Titans haven't cut any of these guys, but I did have a need at inside linebacker because I had Murray, Gibbons, and Williams. And I was like, they need an extra guy there. And so they made the move for Jones. I still think they need a swing tackle. It cannot be Jalen Duncan. If Jalen Duncan is the swing tackle, we got problems. And then I still think they need a third quarterback because I believe in that. Let's go to Jake, who's been holding patiently and is up next here on our program. Thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead, Jake.
Hey, thank you so much. You actually took some of the words right out of my mouth. I was wondering what you were looking at in terms of other positions that you felt like needed a position. But I guess my main question now is, are there any other surprise cuts or surprise additions that you're hoping for the, like, let's say a higher up position, like somebody who, like Keandre Coburn, he hasn't been locked or confirmed yet. Do you think he makes it? Do you think he's cut? Like a surprise like that generally?
I think that will happen. I actually was asked this today. Jake, thank you. I was asked this today on Chase and Big Joe. And Chase asked me, like, is there any surprise? Is there any? And it's hilarious because the Titans, I think, addressed this. Like, I actually think the Titans did a good job with this trade for Ernest Jones of acknowledging we need a starting inside backer that can wear the green dot. And it's not going to be Jack Gibbons because Gibbons is a backup. And he's not a bad backup, but he's a backup. And that's okay. And I said to Chase, I go, what I'm worried about is I'm worried that the Titans are going to sit back and take guys that probably don't belong in the NFL and put them into positions where they could really hurt the team. And Duncan's an example of that. So I am expecting at tackle that the Titans will go with Latham and Petit Frere, a.k.a.
PT.
Latham and PT, which I think we all know they're going with them as starters. And Duncan is the backup, which means Duncan's the swing tackle, and I don't want any part of that. You know, if it's up to me, the swing tackle is going to be, right now, Daniel Brunskill. And I don't know if Daniel Brunskill's ever played a snap in his life at left tackle, but I'm putting him at left tackle and protecting Will Levis's blind side before I put Duncan there. So when you say surprise, I'm like, if it was announced that the Titans dealt the Green Bay 7th-round draft pick to so-and-so to get some tackle, I don't even know if he's good or not, I'll take it because I don't want Duncan stepping on the field. Duncan should either be on the practice squad or not in the organization. He should not be allowed talking about Duncan, he should not be allowed to be the swing tackle of this team. And he's probably going to be the swing tackle of the team. But nobody gets in trouble for things they haven't done yet. Chad says, how does it change how we view the defense as a whole? Where do we think the defense ranks? And does this move the needle for you much in that regard? Here's what matters to me with the defense. And I would say that it's all like prioritized. So it's not just like, oh, now they've added a linebacker. Defense is going to be great. I think the most important question for the defense is, can they get to the quarterback? So can this new coaching staff that's not Shane Bowen, can this new coaching staff, the way the Ravens unlocked Clowney and Kyle Van Noy to get 9 sacks each last year, can they get Arden Key up from 6 sacks to 10 sacks? Can Landry, now a year removed from the knee, can Landry get to the quarterback? Can Simmons, can Sweat help all those guys get to the quarterback? That kind of thing. That's the first question I have. The second question is, can the corners stay healthy? Snead and Awuzie. Can they stay healthy? And then this, kind of the up the middle right here, that would be third. And I would say this takes the Titans inside linebacker position, in my opinion, from a potential liability now to NFL average, which is what they need. So, yeah, the fact that they showed up at this, the end of the OTAs and added Jamal Adams, and again, Jamal Adams might be a corpse of himself at this point, but they added Jamal Adams, but they actually added Quandre Diggs and an inside backer. It does make me feel better about the defense. But again, the other thing with the defense is you can't put them out there. You cannot put them out there for 30 minutes in a game. This is a little surprise cut, Ian.
Yeah, per Justin M.
Justin M is the MVP every year of cut day.
Yeah, Justin M, NFL. I believe it's Justin
the only day
Mello,
he's the MVP, but he is the MVP of cut day.
Yeah, running back, Hassan Haskins.
Well, that's good news for Julius Chestnut, I would assume. That's good news. Now, the deadline for all these cuts to be made is by 3:00. I have no idea what the total the Titans are at now, but my guess is we probably won't get a release. They probably won't have it announced until 3:15 or so. So we're back to your phones again. 615-737-1025, the big news of the day. The Titans have acquired Ernest Jones from the Rams and a 6th in exchange for a 5th. And Ernest Jones, again, I had never heard of until yesterday, but he did have a higher PFF grade than Roquan Smith and was similarly productive. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025 is our phone number here on the program. 615-737-1025. Tune into 94.9 The Fan today as the Sounds take on Charlotte with pregame at 5:20 and first pitch at 5:35. And Sounds Baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks, Family Leisure, 5 Points Roofing, and Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063, the game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. The Titans have to have their roster filed with the league as of, make sure I get this right, 55 seconds ago. That does not mean that we need to know it. So I would expect that we will probably know the Titans roster in What do you think, Ian? 15 minutes, 20 minutes?
Yeah, maybe 5.
So here's what we have so far. Here is who has been cut. Caleb Farley, Mason Kinsey, Hassan. And most of this, by the way, is from Justin Mello, who is, again, the MVP of cut day. And we just got to add one to the list right now. Cut right now. Caleb Farley, Mason Kinsey, Hassan Haskins, Keaton Ellis, Matthew Jackson, Anthony Kendall, Jaron Christian, Lachavius Simmons, Isaiah Aiton, a defensive lineman, TK McClendon, Quentin Bohanna, and 2 new ones. Wide receiver Bryce Oliver, who, I mean, I will say this at practice. It felt like Bryce Oliver was making a play once every practice, to the point that I knew who number 80 was. You know, there'd be somewhere you looked at and said, whoa, who caught that? 80. Who's 80? You pull the Bryce Oliver. Okay. That he had done that so many times that I knew who Bryce Oliver was. And then this was a shocker to me. Gabe Judy-Lally has been cut by the Titans. And what that means between Farley earlier today, and I guess I wasn't shocked that Farley got cut, but I was thinking on a team that definitely doesn't have 53 NFL caliber players, I was thinking there was a chance that they would give Farley a shot. But with Farley being cut, but really with Judy-Lally being cut, I am almost certain that Trey Avery is going to make this football team. And I don't know what Trey Avery's done, because Trey Avery has one ability as far as the NFL is concerned, and it is availability. And we know you can never have enough corners. And the guy who's 5th and 6th, they're going to have to play. Forget about the fact that the Titans have 2 injured corners starting, which is what's going to happen in a couple weeks in Chicago. Forget about that. If they were any team, at some point, the 5th and 4th corners would probably have to play. But they're definitely going to have to play on this team, which means Jarvis Brownlee is going to play in the NFL. And I kind of just always believed when it came to the Titans that they looked at their team with their 3 starting corners and saying, okay, those are our starters. Then if something happens, we'll go to Brownlee. So it's the 3 guys, 2 of whom are dealing with injuries right now, and then McCreary, who is very good and solid and not hurt, just is a little short, has short arms. But then after that, it's Brownlee, and then there would be a drop-off to whoever it was. But I felt, just from watching it, that Judy-Lally had become that guy there with Brownlee that kind of stood out as, hey, if you have to put this guy in the game, you can put him in the game. The one guy that they constantly put in the game, who when he gets in the game, other teams are that guy. They go right at him. It's Avery. Every time. It just goes, Avery, we're going at him. 23. Is that still his number? 23.
Yeah,
we're going
so.
at him. Who else got cut?
No, I was just saying Avery, 23. I believe that is correct.
Yeah, just think. I mean, Brandon Allen of San Francisco on a 3rd and 9 backed up at their goal line, just threw the ball right in Avery's direction. They gained 30 yards. That's the same stuff. Seattle came in here last year, and at the end of the game, Geno Smith literally just kept throwing the ball in the direction of Trey Avery, and they won the game because of it. And I'm not here to crap on Trey Avery. I kept saying to people during OTAs, I said, no matter who they sign, no matter who they trade for, no matter what happens, Nick Westbrook-Akine and Trey Avery will be on the football field. I mean, those guys have to be about 65 years old before something like that happens. And here we are. I've watched Trey Avery in the preseason. He's the same Trey Avery. He stinks. And I thought, you know what? They're going to give Judy-Lally a shot over him. Maybe they give Farley a second shot over him. Obviously, Brownlee's ahead of him. Nope. They're going back to the well on Trey Avery. And now it's probably even more certain they're going back to the well on Trey Avery because, according to Justin Mello, Eric Garrer has been cut. So I'm just looking right now at corners on the roster. They've got Awuzie, who's going to make the team. McCreary's going to make the team. Avery. Brownlee, who's going to make the team. Robert Javier, who is going to get cut, by the way. Robert Javier. Sneed, who's going to make the team. And that's it. At this point, there's no way Trey Avery doesn't make the team. So congratulations to all of us. We're stuck with Trey Avery for another year. And trust me, Avery is going to play. So that's kind of my one big takeaway. Again, not to say that an undrafted free agent, Gabe Judy Lolly, getting cut is the end of the... I'm not Chad Withrow. Like, just because he went to Tennessee does not mean that I got to have this guy. But I just was really hoping that we'd have a football season that was at least Trey Avery-less. And now it's almost impossible that it would be Trey Avery-less. Some of the other moves, according to Justin Mello, the Titans have waived Cole Spencer. No surprise there. I don't really think anybody knows who that is anyways. So they've released Cole Spencer. And according to Justin Mello, he's got, have it on a pretty good account, whatever that is, have it on a pretty good account that Julius Chestnut has made the 53-man roster. Well, I think when they cut Haskins, it was pretty obvious that it was going to be Chestnut who made it. I figured that third running back spot was always going to be between Chestnut and Haskins. And I do wonder if the availability of Chestnut and just the fact that he's a bigger body, for running between the tackles, if that's kind of what put it over the top for Chestnut. I mean, at some point, how many guys do the Titans have to cut? Because I'm looking at this right now. There's going to be some guys that make this team that we're going to be floored by when all is said and done. And one of them, I'm not floored by Trey Avery because, again, at the end of the day, Nick Westbrook-Akine will be on the field and Trey Avery will be on the field. I just know. One texter says, do you think Kyle Phillips will make the 53-man roster? Lord, I hope not. Oh, no. This according to Justin Mello. How does this guy have no scoops all year? And the one day every year, this guy gets every single scoop. And I'm not like, I'm not
JD,
jealous
baby.
of it. Well, I'm not jealous of it or anything like that because I'm not a newsbreaker. I'm not trying to be a newsbreaker. I'm not a reporter. But I'm trying to figure out what source does he have that's only good for cut day?
Yeah. Did you see Jalen Duncan will make the roster?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, no.
So I think you found your swing tackle.
No. Guys, I try not to be mean. I know you think that I do. I promise you, I try in my heart not to be mean. But Jalen Duncan sucks. Like, I just want to be abundantly clear so that everybody knows and everybody understands and Bill Callahan might be the greatest line coach in the history of the NFL. And I promise you, there is nothing he's going to be able to do with Jalen Duncan. Jalen Duncan, to me, is a fringe practice squad player. And I told you guys today, I was like, he's going to be the swing tackle. But he's awful. He was awful when they drafted him. When they drafted him, at the bottom of the screen, I can't remember if I was watching ESPN or NFL Network. It was day 3 of the 23 draft. And when they put that at the bottom of the screen, or they drafted Jalen Duncan, the thing that came up was allowed the most sacks in the Big Ten. It was like, don't know if that's something that's really impressive. But, hey, he's got size and he's got the measurables. They just got to coach him up. And then last year he was out there in training camp. He was terrible. And then after that, the Titans kind of hit him on the bench, which is where he belonged. And they had all the injuries, and he went into that Pittsburgh Thursday night game, and it was like, hold on, wait a minute. I'm supposed to go in the game? Are you sure you're calling me to go in the game, coach? And he went out there, and he went into the game. And then Andre Dillard was so bad that they said, we're going to try Duncan out there. And Duncan was worse than Dillard. He was worse than Dillard. And then this new coaching staff gets here, and the coach says, we're going to try him out. I'm like, no, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And then they tried him out, and very quickly they realized he was not good, and yet here he is making the team. My guess is Brunskill has to be the replacement if something happens to somebody.
I thought he was like the backup interior guy.
Well, here's what you could do. You could, if it's a tackle, you could put Brunskill in at guard and kick Radens out to tackle.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not saying that's ideal.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you that that's, I mean, if we're trying to do whatever we can to keep Duncan off the field, then that is the case. The least surprising news of the day, according to Justin Mello, David Martin Robinson is making the team. Oh, he deleted the tweet.
Uh-oh.
He tweeted out earlier that David Martin Robinson was making the team, and now he's deleted the tweet. We continue on. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company on roster cutdown day, 102.5, 106 through the game.
You talked a lot about being excited about different benchmarks in your first go around. Is this the couple days of a benchmark that you're not excited about at all?
No, not at all. Like as I've said, it's you got relationships with these guys. They play hard, they practice hard, they do everything you ask, and sometimes you're cutting good players. Sometimes you cut guys and that might be it for their football journey. Some guys you cut that are going to go on and play for somebody else, and you hope that they play well and you wish them well. But it is not a process that is very enjoyable. I don't know if you can see the joy emanating from me today, but it's not fun just because the amount of respect you have for guys and what they've done and how they've gone about their business. It means a lot to me as a coach, and you appreciate it. That's the best way you can go about it, is just you thank them for their contribution and their efforts, and you hope that it works out. And if you can help them in the future, you try to. But it's not a very fun benchmark to check off for me.
That was Brian Callahan yesterday. Right now, the Titans are in the process, I would assume, of telling these guys, hey, we appreciate you, but they are in the process of making some of these moves. We are waiting for the Titans to send out the official release announcing the 53-man roster. By my count right now, the Titans have released 18 guys. They need to release 30 with the addition of Ernest Jones. They've released 18 guys, and Justin Mello did put out there that David Martin Robinson was making the team, then deleted the tweet. But he did put out there, Ian, have you ever heard me have this kind of reaction before, the way I had the reaction to this news?
Maybe on a draft.
The Titans have informed tight end Thomas Odukoya that he's made the 53-man roster. What? Like, look, I appreciate Odukoya running his ass off the other day to go keep that guy from scoring a touchdown. I really do. But Thomas Odukoya is not an NFL player. And now, apparently, John Ojukwu has made the 53-man
OJ's in,
roster.
baby.
He is not an NFL player. I don't even know why we have cut that. Again, this is what I'm talking about with the Malik stuff. About Jared, we can't keep Malik. We got to cut Malik. We need that roster spot. And then you carry two guys, and there'll probably be more, because I'm convinced the Titans don't have 53 guys that belong in the NFL. But you're carrying two guys in Odukoya and Ojukwu who are absolutely not NFL players. Sorry. I know Brian Callahan says I got a lot of respect for these guys, and I hate cutting them, and I really appreciate them, and I get it. I get it, and I understand these are human beings too. But we have to call a spade when it comes to the football team, and those guys stink, and they're on the team. I mean, when it comes to Ojukwu, I don't even know what the point of having practices anymore. The guy didn't block a soul in practice of the preseason, and he's made the team. Goodness freaking gracious. I hope those guys, and I hate to say this, I hope those guys get the Devron Johnson treatment. And many of you probably don't know who Devron Johnson is. But when I was in the 7th grade, one of the first Hard Knocks, not the first Hard Knocks, but one of the first Hard Knocks, followed the Dallas Cowboys. This was when Dave Campo was the coach, Quincy Carter, and Chad, what's his name? The baseball player, Hutchinson. They were the quarterbacks. Dallas was terrible. I think it was the year Emmett broke the record, and that was the only thing they had going for them. And there was a receiver that they followed around in training camp named Devron Johnson. And Devron Johnson made the team. He was the 53rd guy. And he was so happy that he made the team that he went to the jewelry store and he bought himself a present for making it on to the team. And then at the end of Hard Knocks, you see Jerry call him into the office because they had put in a waiver claim and got awarded the player, and Jerry let him go. So he thought he made it. He bought the jewelry, and then Jerry cut him. And I think I looked it up on Google one time. I was wondering, what does Devron Johnson do? This was like 4 or 5 years ago. He was a personal trainer. No disrespect to personal trainers or anything like that at all. But it obviously wasn't wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys. So Duncan Ojukwu and Thomas Odukoya. Goodness gracious. Steven says, when you predict that someone is not an NFL player in camp and then they make the NFL roster, it is a reflection of you, says Steven. So I'll just put it to you like this. About 5 years ago, we used to have Floyd put together a 53-man roster and go over the 53-man roster on the air. As hey, Floyd's got his 53-man roster. And every time we do it, he'd get to like 49. And I'd say, you got to fill out the roster. You got to get to 53. And he'd look at me and say, you take whoever you want. I said, but you're the GM. And he said, yeah, I got the 49 guys that belong in the NFL. And that has stuck with me because, again, I grew up with all the press conferences and, oh, this is the hardest day of the year, and it's going to be so hard to figure out who makes this team. And that's all when you want people to believe that you have sentiment, that you have feelings. When you're really sitting there about the 52nd, 53rd guy, when the GM basically is telling you that when he was GM, he probably put the team together, Ian, it wouldn't surprise me in the least if he sat there in the meetings with Jeff Fisher and basically at that point was like, all right, who you want?
Yeah, maybe. Let the coaches kind of, hey, you got to coach them every day. You can pick one or two here.
Yeah. I mean, we got 49. Who you want?
Yeah.
You get the last 4. Oh, yeah. Who do you want? Judy Lolly or Avery? Avery. Okay. I mean, that's usually how these kind of things go. And when I did this the entire time, I had about 45 guys that belonged in the NFL. And the other guys, I mean, they're practice squad kind of players. Like Julius Chestnut, bless his heart, that ain't an NFL running back. You do not turn around and hand him the ball 35 times in a game. That's not an NFL running back. He's on a team, but he's not an NFL caliber player. He's a practice squad guy. One texter says, days like today with loaded potential for meltdowns and oh-no's are can't miss radio. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it, Brett. I am scared to death about the idea of who is going to play tackle if somebody gets hurt, but,
At least I got another green dot option.
No, the Ernest Jones trade, I'm here for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, don't get it twisted.
Not all bad.
I am here for the Ernest Jones trade. That one, trust me, I'm here for. Now people are trying to guess Justin Mello's sources. I don't think this is a bad one. Jason from Mount Juliet says, if I had to guess, Justin Mello has a source in the HR department or the travel department. But he doesn't have other breaking scoops. Like when they cut a guy during the season, I don't think he normally announces it. So it's only on the cut down day that this guy becomes the local version of Adam Schefter. And I'm trying to figure out, I'm not sure I've ever seen this guy out at a practice. And I'm not saying he shouldn't be breaking the news. If you get the news, break the news, go for it. I'm just trying to figure out how this gets to be in this sense. Corey Curtis texts and says, maybe the Titans are trading Nick Vannett. I mean, that would be a hot take after they passed him the ball 4 times to start the game the other day. Corey says, because I'm shocked Odukoya made the team, and I like the kid. Odukoya, from all accounts, is one of the hardest workers on the team, from what I've been told. But that's not, again, we're trying to put together an NFL team here. So here's who we're awaiting for on news as to whether or not they make it, assuming that they probably won't. Narveson, Caleb Murphy, Otis Reese, Kyle Phillips, Shaheem Carter, Jabari Small, some of the other guys. Whew. John Ojukwu making the team. Oh, my goodness. One texter says, did I read this right and saw there's trade rumors around Chig? I don't know if you saw trade rumors or if you saw Terry McCormick's speculative tweet that they might be interested in trading Chig, as in, would you think about it because they love Josh Wiley? You guys know I'm not the biggest Chig fan in the world. Josh Wiley has 9 career catches and is hurt right now. I cannot imagine that they would trade Chig. I would be stunned by that. 615-737-1025. Again, the roster cut down became official, and it was supposed to be official at 3 o'clock, but the Titans, it ends up taking about 10, 15 minutes for the official announcement to come down. And so right now we're at 18 cuts. We got to get to 30 for the Titans to be at 53. That should be coming down the pipe here any moment. We keep waiting on it. 615-737-1025. We'll continue to react to news of the day. The Titans have acquired Ernest Jones from the Rams. For a 5th-round pick, the Titans also receive a 6th in exchange. So what is the actual value the Titans traded? We'll do that next. And your phone, Stillman & Company, 102.5-106.3 The Game.
I don't think this was, well, partially it could have been for the Chance Campbell, but they are not sold on Jack Gibbons. That's why you go out and make this move, because this guy's a player. He's a guy that fit well, obviously, at one point in time with the Rams. He was part of their Super Bowl winning team. He played a lot within the last 3 years. This is a move not necessarily for for Campbell, but it's a move to me that they're not sold on Jack Gibbons being their inside backer as a starter. That's what this has nothing to do with. I don't think this has as much to do with Campbell than it is Jack Gibbons.
There you go. That was Derek. And talking about, again, the news of the day, the Titans have acquired Ernest Jones from the Rams and a 6th-round pick in exchange for a 5th-round pick in next year's draft. And while I don't think he's Roquan Smith, his Pro Football Focus grade last year was 82.1. Roquan Smith's was 80.1. His run defense grade was 90. His pass rush grade was 78.2. Roquan Smith had 158 tackles. He had 145. He was a green dot captain, and he had 4.5 sacks last year. I don't know how you can knock it. And during the break, I took out the draft trade chart. You know, the one we always talk about all the time? I took out the draft trade chart. The Titans, assuming that, you know, that it is based upon the standings that day. So the Titans have roughly the same as the last year's draft at this point because we haven't played a football game. The Titans' value on their 5th-round pick is 33. The Rams' value on their 6th-round pick is 13. That's a difference of 20, which equals the top of the 6th round. So the Titans essentially gave up a 6th-round pick for Ernest Jones. That's crazy. Like, that is, somebody help me figure that one out. And I go back to yesterday when we were talking about the people that said, you know, oh, I trade Malik for a 4th or a 5th-round pick. And it's like, well, no, duh, you trade Malik for a 4th or a 5th-round pick. You trade Dylan Radins for a 4th or a 5th-round pick, and he's your starting right guard. You traded Kevin Byard for a 5th and a 6th-round pick. You definitely would trade those kind of guys for that. The Rams traded a starting inside backer, granted with a little bit of a flare-up on a knee injury and an expiring contract. They traded that for a 6th-round pick. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. It should be noted the Titans, according to Justin Mello, have waived Kearis Jackson. So add him to the list, and now we're at 19. And again, we have got to get to 30 in terms of knowing who all is going to make the team. Kyle has been waiting patiently and is up next here on the Ernest Jones trade. Thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. Kyle, go ahead.
Well, I'm glad we got rid of Kearis Jackson. He didn't bring enough to the receiver room to be able to help us out. He worked on the punt return or kick return. But we got some good news and some bad news. I am psyched about Ernest Jones. I'm surprised you don't know much about him, but that guy is all over the field. He is Azeez Al-Shaair all over the place, just effort, hard-hitting, sideline to sideline linebacker. He's the real deal. The only problem I think with him is he's going to want an $8 million deal. We've got money to pay him. It's just the Rams have a young guy and standing by to, you know, pay and get ready to go and just play cheap. And that's why we can have him. I don't know why anybody else didn't want him. I guess they just don't value linebacker like Wilson does, our DC. But the bad news is Odakoya and OJ, Duncan. Are we serious? Like, this is our backup line? Please tell me we can get some guys on the waiver wire and cut these guys later.
I am hopeful.
Hopeful.
I am hopeful.
Come on, Bill. Find you some guys out there. I know you can.
That's the best I can give you is hopeful. Kyle, thank you for the call. The best I can give you on the swing tackle position is that I'm hopeful. And here's the problem about positions like that on days like today. You know, today Twitter got all mad at John Robinson because the Titans cut Caleb Farley. And anytime the Titans cut anybody that John Robinson drafted or traded for or whatever, it's like, John Robinson was the worst. Even though he won 61% of his games, and they were in first place when they fired him, and they had been to the playoffs 3 years in a row when they fired him, and all that kind of stuff. And he drafted three All-Pros in his first draft, and he drafted Jeffrey Simmons and A.J. Brown and Nate Davis and Amani Hooker and David Long all in one draft. Like, other than that stuff, and the winning that he did, he was the worst. You were right. I don't know. Whatever. And I said today on Twitter, I was like, he was a good general manager who made some really bad decisions. And I will tell you, I think that he got to a point where he thought his farts didn't smell, and that's a problem. But he wasn't like the worst general manager to walk the planet or anything crazy like that. He was a good general manager for the Titans. But I say this because one of the things that people just hammered him over the head about was Dennis Daly in 2022. And I think we can all agree that Dennis Daly sucked. It's just that the other guys have sucked just as bad as Dennis Daly since Dennis Daly left. But Dennis Daly wasn't supposed to be the starter. Dennis Daly was supposed to be the swing tackle. And he was a guy who had started some in the NFL at tackle. And they thought, if we got to go with this guy for a game, we can live with it. But then Taylor Lewan hurt his knee, and now all of a sudden Dennis Daly's the left tackle, and now you're in deep doo-doo. Well, that's what you're doing with Jalen Duncan here. But Jalen Duncan is nowhere near the player that Dennis Daly was. And that's saying something. Unsurprising to anybody, Andrew Rupchich. Apparently, I would assume this is according to Justin Mello, Ian?
That is correct.
According to Justin Mello, Andrew Rupchich has made the Titans, and because of that, I am not surprised, but I think, again, add Rupchich to the list, along with Duncan and Ojukwu and Odukoya and guys that are practice squad players. And Rupchich, I think he got a start at the end of last year, and maybe he got a start at the end 2 years ago or something. But Rupchich, he's a practice squad guy. But because the Titans have zero depth on the offensive line, they're going to carry guys that, again, I don't think really belong in the NFL. And Rupchich is an example of that. So, dear everybody on the offensive line, even you, PT, please stay healthy. One texter says, for what it's worth, I went to South Carolina, so I've watched every Carolina game since 2009, and Ernest Jones is maybe the best linebacker to come out since then. He is the hardest worker on the field. He's a tackling machine. He has a great football IQ, and it's a fantastic ad for the Titans. One texter says, you say that every team has a Simmons and a Snead, but fail to mention that every team has players like Duncan. I don't think that's true. I don't think the 2019 Titans, the one that went to the AFC title game, good teams, their swing tackle was Dennis Kelly. And I think we can all agree Dennis Kelly was a pretty good swing tackle. So don't tell me that all the teams have a Jalen Duncan. Because I truly believe if the Titans had cut Jalen Duncan, he's going right to the practice squad. That no team would put in a claim. No team would even bother. Now, do teams, have practice squad players on their team? Yeah. That's why every team has a practice squad. That's why guys get called up off the practice squad. Yes. But does every team have a practice squad player as their swing tackle? That I'm not so sure of. One texter says, so is Rand as good as Twitter says? I am not drinking the Kool-Aid. Nobody heard of Ernest Jones before today and before your show today. I'm not the guy who is sitting here telling you that this is not a good trade by the front office and the GM who's a part of the front office. But I am saying that I do wonder how many people like me did not know who Ernest Jones was 2 days ago. But it doesn't mean he's bad. It just means we hadn't heard of him. Ian, you say the roster is out.
That is correct. They have released their waived players per
is this a Jim Wyatt thing?
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. Here is who is out as far as the Titans are concerned. I hate when they do this, when they write down like all these guys, write me a story about it. Just give me the list.
There's a list that's kind of separated into a few different categories there.
Here you go. So the difference is there's a difference between being waived and being released. If you're a vested veteran, if you've got experience in the league, you're a veteran, you just free to sign with anybody. If you're waived, then other teams can claim you. Here's who got released. Abdullah Anderson, Jaron Christian, Corey Levin, Shane Ray. Here's who got waived. Again, same thing in theory. Trey Avery who's playing corner for this team?
I don't know.
I mean, I hate to break it to you, but Snead and Awuzie are no sure bets to be able to play on Sundays. And so if you cut Farley and you cut Guerrer and you cut Judy Lally and you cut Kendall and you cut Avery, who's playing corner?
And Matthew Jackson.
And Jackson.
Yeah, I guess
Avery,
safety,
Quentin Bohanna, Shaheem Carter, Khalid Duke, Keaton Ellis, Caleb Farley, Eric Guerra, Hassan Haskins, Isaiah Eiton, Kieris Jackson, Matthew Jackson, Robert Javier, Gabe Julie Lally, Anthony Kendall, Mason Kinsey, Braden Narvison, Bryce Oliver, Jabari Small, Cole Spencer, Leroy Watson. Kyle Phillips and Lashavius Simmons also waived with injury designations. Chance Campbell and TK McClendon placed on injured reserve, and Colton Dowell will stay on the PUP list after he tore his ACL at the end of last year. So what does that mean for who made the team and who is on the depth chart? Well, we will do that next. We will go over what the final 53 looks like as far as the depth chart is concerned. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Let's talk White Bison. That's right. Did you know that White Bison is your local coffee shop? White Bison knows what you're craving this time of the year. Pumpkin. That's right. So try their pumpkin cookie frappe, pumpkin spice latte, or vanilla shaken espresso with pumpkin soft whip. They are truly irresistible. Plus, White Bison Rewards members can get your 8th drink for free. And while you're there, check out their sandwiches and wraps, all freshly prepared right when you order. And for the sweet tooth, try their fresh baked pastries. They go perfectly with premium coffee, expertly prepared by roast masters. White Bison, finally crafted for you every day. White Bison and twice daily. What are you craving?
You regather Wednesday at 69 or 70. I know it tends to feel smaller.
It's shocking that first time we're on the field. Yeah.
Kind of remessage or rebrand, like here we are now. This is.
It always
there might be changes, but this is us.
Yeah, it's the first time that the 2024 team, for the most part, is the real team that's going to take the field for regular season football. And so those things, it feels weird because all of a sudden you go out to practice and then there's no benches or bleachers or people, and all of a sudden, like, where is everybody? You only have a handful of guys, and it's kind of jarring, but it's also like that's always been the reminder. It's like, all right, now it's here now we're going. So I'll remessage a little bit, and we'll have a chance to celebrate the guys that make the team. It's not always a foregone conclusion. It's not something guys take for granted. Get a chance to play another year of NFL football, and it's fun. It's a fun process this week when you get finalized to you get your captains voted for. It starts to feel like we're getting ready to go play football.
There you go. That was Brian Callahan. And so the Titans have made their cuts. Again, Caleb Farley, Kieris Jackson, Mason Kinsey, Kyle Phillips, Trey Avery, Eric Gare, Hassan Haskins, Shaim Carter, Keaton Ellis, Jabari Small, Gabe Jeudy-Lally, Robert Javier, Matthew Jackson, Anthony Kendall, Braden Narvison, Khalid Duke, Shane Ray, Corey Levin, Jaron Christian, Cole Spencer, Leroy Watson, Latavius Simmons, Isaiah Aiton, Abdullah Anderson, Bryce Oliver, and then TK McClendon went on IR, and Quentin Bohanna. And so that's who's out. So that means who's in. For the Titans, here are the names that I think that you would be a little surprised by having made the team. And Ian, if I overlook somebody and they end up having been cut, you tell me.
Okay.
Otis Reese IV makes the team, the inside linebacker. Caleb Murphy, the pass rusher, who always plays in the preseason games over the last 2 years, but never actually plays in the real games. He made the team. Mike Brown, the safety. Ian, what do you know about Mike Brown?
Who?
Mike Brown, the safety, made the team. Cedric Gray, who I don't think has taken a single snap in training camp, or I don't even know this guy exists. Cedric Gray made the team. Luke Gifford, inside linebacker / special teamer. He's $3 million. So basically the same amount of money as Ernest Jones, I think he's $2 million. Luke Gifford made the team. John Ojukwu and Jalen Duncan as your backup tackles made the team. Andrew Rupchich made the team. Both tight ends, David Martin Robinson and Thomas Odukoya, made the team. Keandre Coburn made the team, and Jalen Harrell made the team. So here's where it sits by my count. The Titans have 2 quarterbacks, Levis and Rudolph, 3 running backs, Pollard, Spears, and Chestnut, 6 wide receivers, Hopkins, Ridley, Boyd, Burks, NWI, and Jaquan Jackson, 5 tight ends, Thomas Odukoya, Josh Wiley, Nick Vanette, David Martin Robinson, and Chig Okonkwo. On the offensive line, 2 left tackles, J.C. Latham and Jalen Duncan, 2 left guards, Peter Skoronsky and Andrew Rupchich, 2 centers, Lloyd Cushenberry and Daniel Brunskill, 1 right guard, Dylan Radens, 2 right tackles, Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a. PT, and John Ojukwu. Defensive line, Jeffrey Simmons, Sebastian Joseph Day, Tavondre Sweat, and Keandre Coburn. I believe that's it. Outside backer, Landry, Weaver, Key, Harrell, and Murphy. Inside linebacker, Murray, Jones, Gibbons, Williams, Reese, Gray, and Gifford. So I believe that is, 6 inside backers? 7. 7 inside backers make this team. Holy crap. 4 corners? Is that right? 4 corners. Snead, Awuzie, McCreary, and Brownlee. Did I miss anybody? I don't think I did. 4 corners, 2 of which don't practice. Holy crap. Goodness gracious. 5 safeties, Hooker, Adams, Digg, Brown, and Molden. And then the special teamers, Folk, Stonehouse, and Cox. Lord, have mercy that the Tennessee Titans will be able to make some waiver claims on corners, tackles, and a guard. But guard, I can live without. You can fudge it with Brunskill and whatever. But Lord, please put a corner on the waiver wire that the Titans can claim, because if they don't, 5 tight ends, 7 inside backers, and 4 corners. Woo! Crazy. Brent from Dover says, this cut list tells me one thing. Ran is far from being done. Lots of action coming on the waiver wire and potential trades. I don't really know exactly what they have to trade. I need to look at what picks they have, but they don't have a 3rd next year. They use that for L'Jarius Sneed. They don't have a 5th next year. They just used that for Ernest Jones. And they gave away, I believe, their 7th this year for Leroy Watson. But so they, I guess, have 2 7ths because they got the 7th for Malik. But there could be a small little trade in there that we don't even remember that could have a pick removed from the Titans and everything else. Cameron says, Kyle Phillips cut. What a career. Let me say this. I expect there to be a mourner's cottage to be read aloud on the Robbie and Rex Road program tomorrow for Kyle Phillips, because I will never forget driving to practice one day. I'm in the car listening to my favorite morning program, Robbie and Rex Road, and somebody texted in, and this was before last year, and somebody texted in and said, should I put Chig or Kyle Phillips on my fantasy team? And I was like, so you know how Robbie reads out the text. Joe, Johnny, and Dixon says, should I put Chig Okonkwo or Kyle Phillips on my fantasy team? And I'm like, pfft. And Joe was like, you know, I think I might be there in the mix a little bit on putting Kyle Phillips on the fantasy team. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? Kyle Phillips on your fantasy team? No, you don't put guys like that in your fantasy. You might put DeAndre Hopkins on your fantasy team, putting Kyle Phillips. So I expect a mourner's cottage to be read aloud as they remember Kyle Phillips as a Titan. So a bunch of people are saying that the 5th round pick in 2026 in the text line, the 5th round pick is for 2026, is apparently what the text line saying.
I believe that is correct. Yeah.
Okay. So is the 6th?
Yes, they're both 2026 draft picks.
I mean, it really is. I mean, well, I said it was 20. So basically they gave up a 7th round pick in order to get Ernest Jones, because you have to subtract around if you're adding an extra year. And so a 7th or so a 6th, the value of what they gave up for Ernest Jones was a 6th because it was a value of 20, which is the 2nd pick of the 6th round. Subtract around because it's in a future year, and they really gave up a 7th round draft choice for Ernest Jones. Somebody help me understand that. One texter says, guarantee they have scouted corners elsewhere and more trades like Evans are in the works. You mean Ernest? Who's Evans? I'm guessing it's Ernest Jones that they're talking about. Randy says, sounds like they cut all the guys who've complaining about for the last 2 years and replaced them with a whole new group to start complaining about. That is true. We did complain a lot about Trey Avery. We did complain a lot about Kyle Phillips. I'm trying to think who else we complain a lot about that they cut. Really just Avery, I think. But, I mean, if Duncan has to play, I'll just put it to you like this. If Jalen Duncan has to play, knock on wood, but if Jalen Duncan actually has to play football for the Titans, then you guys will feel differently about Bill Callahan at the end of this year, because Duncan is that bad. And Ojukwu is worse. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. We will get back to your phones. Again, the 53 is out, but the news of the day, the Titans made a trade. And the more I hear this trade, the more I don't understand it for anybody but the Titans. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Just to recap, the Titans have made their cuts. There are some surprises. 4 corners on the roster. That is a surprise. 7 inside backers on the roster. That is a surprise. But for the most part, not a ton of surprises. The trade today, Ernest Jones, a very, very, very good trade for the Titans. on paper. I did not know this guy existed 2 days ago, but by every metric, by the raw stats, his tackles, his sacks, is very impressive. His Pro Football Focus numbers, very impressive. His lack of salary, very impressive. And the lack of what the Titans gave up in order to get him, very impressive. But I just laughed out loud during the break, now that we know the official 53-man roster. Yesterday, when I put out my 53-man roster at the end of the show, I did it at 8:30 in the morning. So this was before Malik was traded at about, 3:15, 3:30 yesterday. So I had 46 locks to make the Titans, which did include both Chance Campbell and Malik. And I put 7 open spots on the roster. Now, Chance Campbell was replaced by Ernest Jones as far as a roster spot. So 7 open spots. I went through my list. I've got 7 practice squad level players on the Titans. Jalen Duncan, John Ojukwu, Andrew Rupchich, Mike Brown, Otis Reese, Thomas Odukoya, and Julius Chestnut. I think those guys are practice squad level players. If you put them in there, you will feel that they are practice squad level players. And what practice squad level players can do is they can help you get through a game. They cannot start a game. Teams will go right at them and you'll be in trouble. And they cannot play multiple games. You will be in real trouble. And notice, I did not put David Martin Robinson on that list. I did not put James Williams on that list. I did not put Caleb Murphy on that list, even though I do think Caleb Murphy is a practice squad level player. So put him on there, Ian. That's 8.
Okay.
This goes back to pretty sure I got the guys that belong in the NFL that are on the team. And these other 8 spots, if I was the coach, I probably wouldn't tell them this because, you always want everybody to think you believe in them. But if I was the coach, I'd be like, don't go buy a house. Don't rent. Be sure to rent. Do not go out and buy a house. Just be very, very careful in that regard. So I have not seen who else has been cut around the NFL. I am not an advanced scout, somebody that's supposed to know all the players on all the other teams. But a lot of people have texted into the text line, and our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com at 615-737-1025, and are saying that the San Francisco 49ers have released Chris Hubbard, and they need to go get Chris Hubbard. Let me say this. Go get Chris Hubbard. And if you go get Chris Hubbard, then you have a swing tackle. And I think Chris Hubbard is a backup. But that's better than what you got now. In fact, I think I would argue that if I were the Titans and I had the fortune of signing Chris Hubbard back and Chris Hubbard were healthy, I think Hubbard might be a better player than PT. Now, PT would start because he's got the reps there and because he's the young player, and you always want the young guy to get the opportunity under Bill Callahan to succeed. But if your house was on the line, Ian, and you had to bet for one game at right tackle, Hubbard or PT, who would you bet on?
That's a good question, actually. I don't know if it's a slam dunk as you would think.
Well, I don't think it's a slam dunk, but I think the fact that it's a question mark is the biggest issue here of why you need to go get Chris Hubbard.
Okay. Yeah. Hubbard was okay.
Yeah, Hubbard was fine.
He was fine. He was not very good. PT definitely has a higher ceiling.
PT absolutely has a higher ceiling, but as we learned last year, he has a lower floor.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I guess if I had to pick one game, I guess I would try to get by with Hubbard, but it's pretty close.
Boy, that tells you how bad it is. The 49ers, I don't even know if Trent Williams is going to play for them this year.
He'll play.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's not going to sit out the season.
Adam Schefter said that he won't play without a new contract.
They'll get him signed.
I would think that's the case, but Yes. One texter says, is John Ojukwu OJ, is that pencil legs? Yes, that is pencil legs.
We do not body shame on this program.
I think Derek said it best at practice one day. Derek said to me, he goes, he's got receiver legs. He's got legs like mine. You know, that's the thing. You look at J.C. Latham, for instance, and J.C. Latham looks like what you would expect to have at tackle if you use the 7th pick on a guy. Latham's feet are big. Latham's ankles are big. His legs are huge. His butt's massive. And he can move. And that's why you get picked 7th. And when you're John Ojukwu and your legs are the size of Derek Mason's and you can't block because you can't anchor down and push those guys back, you're probably a practice squad player. And that's probably the difference. One texter says, be sure not to give any credit to Rand since we don't know whose move the Ernest Jones trade was. Was it his, Brinkers, the other guys, the triumvirate? Who made it? No. We'll give credit where credit is due. Team decision. And it looks like a good trade. Does not mean it was a good trade. You know, that we'll see during the season. Because everybody told me Kyle Turris was a good trade too. But on paper, I do like what I see out of the Titans with that move. One texter says, in all caps, the 4 corners are scaring me more than anything else in the roster. There's no way that Rand doesn't go get more guys to Nashville. I have to imagine the Titans are going to make a crap load of waiver claims. Now they're claiming 7th. So that doesn't mean they're necessarily going to get a bunch of guys. And I know this wasn't this administration, but I remember when John Robinson inherited the Titans. See, you all think he sucks so bad. You fail to remember that John Robinson had the worst team in the league when he took over. And one thing they kept talking about was the fact that they had the first spot on the waiver claim. And they did claim Josh Klein from New England, and he did become a starting right guard for about 3 years, which is good. But I think he was the only guy they claimed. And so that's when you had the number 1 position. Right now you have the number 7 position. So you can make claims on all kinds of guys, and the other teams ahead of you might claim them too, which means you got to make even more claims just to make sure that you get somebody. But I also think as much as we don't like Eric Guerrer, as much as we don't like Trey Avery, as much as we don't like some of these guys, I think we have to remember that the guys you may be claiming might be the way you would say what the old man would call swap and spit, is what you would call that. One texter said that John Ojukwu made Jalen Harrell look like somebody in the media said this, texted me and said John Ojukwu made Jalen Harrell look like Lawrence Taylor. Yeah, that's the problem, folks. Oof. Unbelievable. One texter says, so your logic about pencil legs means Derrick Henry is a practice squad player? What does that mean? Derrick Henry's freaking huge. What are you talking about?
Is he saying that Henry had small legs?
Let me tell you something about Derrick Henry. And there's one part about Derrick Henry I have no idea about. Might be big, might be small. I have no idea. Everything else about Derrick Henry is massive. And so I will tell you that I don't know what that texter is talking about. Tyler says, I think they're going to have several of the cut corners on the practice squad, and they will end up being game day elevations most weeks. Well, you can only elevate a guy, I think, 2 or 3 times. And then after that, they have to be signed to the active roster. So in that case, you might just be better just keeping Guerrer or Farley or Avery or whoever. Judy Lawley's the one that surprises me. Now, there is one thing that I would be skeptical of with the Titans when it comes to Chris Hubbard. Let me say this. I don't know if we spent enough time today talking about Chris Hubbard. If we have spent enough time saying, hey, they need to be in the mix on Chris Hubbard. Because I really believe that. I don't know who the other tackles getting released are, but I know Hubbard. I know what he is. And I know that he doesn't absolutely freaking suck, which makes him better than Duncan and Ojukwu. But there is one thing to keep in mind when it comes to these decisions. And that is when it comes to Hubbard, he's a veteran. And if he's on the roster week 1, that means he's getting paid for the whole season. But he is not if he gets signed in week 2. So could the Titans try to wait a week on Chris Hubbard? I wouldn't. I would just go sign Chris Hubbard right now and be done with it. And now he's the swing tackle, the end. But who knows? 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. What Sean McVay had to say yesterday about a potential Ernest Jones trade. We'll get to that and your phones. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game.
As far as the Ernest Jones stuff, we never said that he requested a trade, and so we've had communication with his representation, and I'm going to leave that in house for now. But other than that, you guys have no questions. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Go ahead.
Do you expect Ernest to be back at any point?
We're just working through some different things, and so we're just going to take it a day at a time, Jordan.
How much of a challenge would that be for you if he remained in the full with a guy that it's now out there that you're willing to trade him and you have not been able to reach?
He's a pro in every sense of the word, Gary. I think these are conversations. Sometimes things get out there, but in his defense, he's right. He never requested a trade. We had communication with his representation. There's been some dialogue with teams, and that's kind of where it's at. But these are parts of the profession, and they're not fun parts, but they are real parts that you have to acknowledge. And Ernest is a pro in every sense of the word, and so we're just kind of dealing with it a day at a time.
How would you compensate if he's not here? Who steps into that role as a green dot and everything?
I think once we see exactly which direction this thing ends up, then I'll be able to appropriately answer that for you.
Is there a timeline which you'd like to have it resolved by?
I think there's a lot of discussions that are ongoing, right now, Sarah. I think there's always a little bit increased urgency around the league, not exclusive to just this situation, with just the possible movement that can occur here. And so I'm sure the next time that I talk to you, I'll have a little bit more clarity. But we are working through those things, and there's changes by the minute potentially.
There you go. That was yesterday. Sean McVay talking about the Ernest Jones situation. So let me get this straight. Ernest Jones did not request a trade, even though Tom Pelissero and all the insiders and all the guys with the NFL, they all came out and they said, hey, it is totally okay. The Rams are totally letting him explore a trade. And he said, I never request to be traded. And then Sean McVay also says, well, we didn't say we were trying to trade him. Okay. But anywho, the Titans end up with Ernest Jones on the team. And I just can't get over the idea that there's got to be something that we're missing on this. Again, a guy is only available for one of four reasons. Bad player, which it doesn't seem like Ernest Jones is a bad player, given the fact that he had a higher PFF grade than Roquan Smith. He had 4.5 sacks last year. He led the Rams with 145 tackles. He wore the green dot. Bad guy. Doesn't seem that way. You kept hearing that Sean McVay cut. Then again, Sean McVay was lying in half of that. But you did hear Sean McVay say, hey, he's a pro. And he's going to handle it like a pro. And he's going to be a pro. And he was voted a team captain. So he was voted team captain. And he's a pro. And again, clearly he was looking for a contract for a trade. And he didn't want it out there that he was looking for it. To me, that says really good guy right there. The third reason is money. And he's set to make $3.1 million this year. He's a free agent after the season. And he wanted a contract extension. And apparently Joe says he talked to the Rams people that cover The Athletic. And they say they got a young rookie that they want to put in there. And that's fine. But $3.1 million is really nothing in the NFL, especially to the Rams. So, and I don't think he's injured. He played 15 games last year, and Joe said he had a knee flare up, but a knee flaring up and him being damaged goods are two totally different things. So I've got to understand what I'm missing. Because if this looks as good on paper or if it ends up being as good as it looks on paper, this Titans defense has a shot. This is something that, while inside backer is not a valuable position to me. See, I know I bitch about guard and inside backer and safety, and I tell you, don't draft those in the first round because those aren't those kind of valuable positions. But it doesn't mean that they don't have some sort of value. Like, I mean, I would assume that even guard has a value. It doesn't have the Robert Hunt $20 million a year value to me that he got from Carolina, but guard definitely has some sort of value. It is not with the 11th pick. I mean, inside linebackers got some value. So I like what I see now, Sweat. So on paper, he looks like he'll be able to help them replicate the Danico Autry loss. Kenneth Murray. Paper says Kenneth Murray sucks, but in training camp, Kenneth Murray absolutely looks the part of a former first-round pick. So I do kind of like that. And on paper, L'Jarius Sneed will play 17 games and Chidobe Awuzie will be fine. And if that's the case, you got a solid defense. Elite might be a stretch. But to me, the biggest liability was Gibbons, and that was Gibbons and his inability to run. And I do believe that this guy, who I've never seen play, and so I'm not, you cannot hold me to any of this other than what the raw numbers say. I got to believe this guy's got better foot speed than Gibbons. I mean, Gibbons can't move. He got beat by Tua running on the edge. So I don't know what I'm missing here, but it does feel to me like this is a big-time addition for the Titans. And again, the picks that they exchanged, they gave up a 5th-round pick in 2026, so in 2 years, a 5th-round pick, and they got back a 6th-round pick in 2026. The difference of that value is 20. Subtract a year, which is a 6th-round pick, subtract a year, so you basically gave up a 7th rounder, and you got your starting inside backer who's going to wear the green dot. That is essentially the same as what you traded for Leroy Watson, who you just cut. That's pretty impressive. And even for me, who gets up here and bitches about everything that Rand and the Titans do that I don't like, I will tell you that on paper, it looks like a good trade. I highly doubt there's some sort of Trojan horse inside this guy that's going to ruin the locker room. Now, could he be damaged goods? And at the end of the day, it's Gibbons out there? Maybe. But even then, it was for a 7th-round pick. I'm not upset that they went and added Leroy Watson at the behest of Bill Callahan with a chance to try to see if he could make the team and gave up a 7th-round draft pick in order to do so. I'm not upset about that. So I'm not going to be upset about this trade either. One texter says, are they going to use one of the 5 tight ends as trade bait? I hope so. Who in the world needs 5 tight ends? You know what the 4 corners does kind of remind me of?
What's that?
Ken Wisenhunt's second year, but my first year here on the radio. The Titans broke camp with 4 wide receivers.
That's true. I remember that.
Kendall Wright, Justin Hunter, Dorial Green Beckham, and Harry Douglas. Oh my God, did that team suck. But they broke camp with 4 wide receivers. That's never a good sign. I mean, that is never a good sign. And so for me, the 4 corners is concerning. The 5 tight ends, I'm like, I don't know why. I don't know why you need Odakoya on the team. I don't, what's the point? God bless him. He ran his tush off the other day, which was nice to see. But making the team, and Ojukwu, how did he make the team?
Could Wiley go on IR?
I mean, if Wiley goes on IR, I don't know what they're going to do at tight end other than play Martin Robinson.
And then, I guess he'd have to miss at least, 4 games?
But wouldn't they put him on IR right now if they were going to do that?
Well, maybe they'll put him on IR when they want to make a waiver claim. I'm not sure.
I mean, I think they got 8 practice squad level players. So if you don't have to IR them, then don't IR,
Mm-hmm.
And I have to believe they think the same thing. I have to believe that they're not that stupid, that they don't look at Thomas Odakoya and think, yeah, that's not an NFL player right there. I cannot imagine it. But then again, with the Titans, who knows? All right. I am panicked over the swing tackle situation, the backup offensive line situation, the 4 corners I don't like, But I do like the Ernest Jones trade. Trevor will join us next on the program. His reaction, Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, the Titans roster is set, and so is the roster on the offensive line as of right now. J.C. Latham at left tackle, Peter Skoronsky at left guard, Lloyd Cushenberry at center, Dylan Radins at right guard, Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a. PT at right tackle, Jalen Duncan as the swing tackle, John Ojukwu is also on the roster, Andrew Rupchich is a backup guard, and Daniel Brunskill as the backup center and can also play guard. And remember, Brunskill has also played some right tackle in his career. So that is what it looks like. They got 4 corners, which I think is a little bit of a concern, 5 tight ends, which I don't think anybody ever needs. And I'm not even sure they really have a number 1 tight end, but it kind of is at that point what it is. So with that, Trevor Maddich joins us now on the program from ESPN. So Trevor, let's start with the Titans offensive line. Are you as worried as I am about the fact that where we sit right now, Jalen Duncan is the swing tackle for the Tennessee Titans?
Yes. That, to me, is kind of like, okay, he's a placeholder that we hope we don't have to use until we can scour the waiver wire from other teams and see who else we can get in here. I don't mind Jalen Duncan on the practice squad. But right now, the problem with him is not that he can't play. It's that you don't know what he's going to do. At times he looks good. At times he looks very good. And at times he will fall on the ground. He will break his nose on the grass while his guy runs free to smash the quarterback. And that mix you can't plan for. If somebody is okay and you know he's okay and he gives you okay on a regular basis, as a coach, if he's got to go in as a backup, you can plan for that. But a guy that's good, disaster, good, catastrophe is not a guy you want. And right now, that's who Jalen Duncan is.
Trevor, Chris Hubbard has been released by the 49ers. There are a lot of people. Of course, Hubbard filled in for the first half of the season last year, wasn't terrible at right tackle when they had him there. He's been released by the 49ers. A lot of people, including me, are clamoring for the Titans to claim him or to sign him to a contract. He would be a vested veteran, and thus if they signed him before week 1, then he would be paid throughout the entire season, as you well know. Is that a move they need to make?
Well, if they think that he can come in and be a quality swing tackle, then they must make it, and they must take the risk of the finances. In other words, if they think he's going to be the best option from the waiver wires out there, then they need to not worry at all about being committed to his salary if they then cut him in week 3 because it turns out he can't play. The reason is that he would be too important. Let's put it this way. A position of a swing tackle who can play in the NFL and give you reliable performance on this team especially is too critical than to mess around with the cap and the finances of it. If you have to eat the salary, you have to eat it. But what you don't want to do is have the quarterback eat turf because all of a sudden you need a backup tackle to come in who can't play. And so I think it would be worth it to bring him in if they think he's the best option. In other words, not wait until week 2. Because if they wait until week 2, him being a veteran, they bring him in and his salary is not it's not guaranteed. Only if he's on the roster for week 1. Mm-hmm. So they could take that risk, but I don't think the risk is worth it if they think he's the best option.
Trevor Maddox, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Let's knock on wood here, but let's say there's an injury at the tackle position. I think the Titans' answer to any injury on the offensive line should be Brunskill. So if it is a left tackle that goes down, Brunskill goes in, and I don't care if Radens goes out to left tackle or if Brunskill has to play left tackle. He's played some right tackle in his career. I would put Brunskill out there before I would put Rupchich, Ojukwu, or Duncan on the field. Is that crazy?
Yeah, kind of. It's really weird out there. I mean, in my 12 years in the NFL, I started games at left tackle, left guard, center, right guard. I played right tackle, played tight end, ended all the long snapping. But I never started more than 6 in a row at the same position because coaches figured out that I could move from left to right, from inside to outside without even practicing and get them out of a few games and be reliable in the way that I described. Not go dominate, but at least be predictable in what I could and couldn't do, moving around so much. So I never got to focus on one position for 5 years to excel at that position. Well, that became my role because that's what coaches wanted me to do. And I can tell you that if you're used to practicing inside and then you have to bounce out to left tackle, the speed and the space and all the rest of it are so different and they are so abruptly shocking that I don't know that you want to do that. You'd really be better off putting Jalen Duncan out there and just hoping for the best. Or even, and this is not a good idea either, but you could take Nicholas Petit-Frere and put him out there, put Dylan Radens at right tackle, and put Brunskill in at right guard. Mm-hmm. I think that would probably be the best call if you did that. But, I don't know that I would put Brunskill out at left tackle unless you just had everybody else injured, like everybody.
Trevor Maddich is with us. Trevor, the Titans are carrying 4 corners, which Snead, Awuzie, both of whom have not practiced, McCreary, who we know is good, and Brownlee, who they drafted in the 5th round. That means no Judy Lally, no Farley, no Avery, no Guerrer. How much of an issue is that?
Massive. I'm interested to see how many corners they bring back to the practice squad. They probably will overrepresent corners on the practice squad, and they probably will end up carrying 5 corners at least once we get the roster settled in after they start going through the waiver wire. The reason is that offenses will spread all the time. They'll put 4 and 5 wide receivers out there all the time. If you only have 4 corners, then they can put 5 wideouts out there, and you've got a safety covering somebody man for man if that's the way that works. Then you've got the injury situation, and that's why it's super curious at first glance, because L'Jarius Sneed, doesn't practice. He's just going to play, and then Awuzie is a great player, but he's also working on an injury. Those 2 guys could both be out for a month on a single play if they both kind of get dinged up and banged up, and you have to count on that if you're building this roster. So I don't expect them to stay at 4 corners. I expect them to add at least 1 more to the active roster and a whole bunch of them to the practice squad.
Do you think when it comes to the Titans, I put on my list, I got 8 guys that I think are basically practice squad caliber players. Duncan, Ojukwu, Rupchich, Mike Brown, the safety, Otis Reese, the linebacker, Thomas Odukoya, the tight end, Julius Chestnut, the running back, and Caleb Murphy, the pass rusher. With 8 guys that I think are practice squad guys, maybe you agree, think it should be more, think it should be, I don't know. But they've got to make a lot of waiver claims, right, Trevor? Like, this should be far from the finished product before Chicago in 12 days.
Yeah, it always is, by the way. You get a lot of people that players that see that they're on the final cut down roster at 4:00, Eastern, I guess, and they call their parents and they put on social media and they hug their girlfriend, and the next thing you know, the next morning they're cut because the team brought in somebody else, even in a different position, like corner, for example, where they need more depth and they're just waiting to see who. So making the team now is not making the team. Making the team, in a few days or maybe even a week or 2 is making the team. And so we start with that. Of those players, practice squad, I kind of agree with you, except for one thing. I mean, Otis Reese, I like him. I really do. I think he's got a really interesting role to play whenever he's ready to do it, when he's healthy and ready to go. He's a little banged up right now. But at 6'3", 214, moving from defensive back to linebacker, he's one of those guys that can run with the tall but lighter tight ends that'll line up in the slot and are a mismatch for a normal safety, because he now becomes a tall linebacker. He's rangy and he can run around and do things and fill. You wouldn't want to put him in front of an offensive guard and have him take on a lead coming right at him, where if the guard doesn't block him, the fullback does. That's not his role, but I think he can grow into a very productive role, and that doesn't even include what he can do on special teams. His body type is just that tweener that is necessary to counter the tweeners that the offenses will try to match up with.
Trevor, what do you think about the 5 tight ends they're keeping, including Martin Robinson, the undrafted free agent that's impressed, and Odukoya, who's been on the roster for a couple of years as the International Pathways player, but he makes the final roster. Surely they're not going to be using 5 tight ends, but what do you make of that?
No, I mean, again, at first glance, you're looking at special teams, because this team, they drafted in a lot of ways for, hopefully guys will work out in, offense or defense, but we know they have a chance to make the team on special teams. There's a lot of guys after Tavondre Sweat in the 2nd round that they drafted that are in that category. And tight ends, they can run, man. Those are guys that can be big, dominant special teamers, but I don't think they'll keep that many tight ends just because they need help in other places, especially at corner. And, right now I think it's just a matter of placeholders, because which of those tight ends scare a defense?
Mm-hmm.
None.
Yeah, none.
I think Josh Wiley has a chance. Chig has a chance. Okoye down the road. But right now, neither one of those guys scares the defense, and nobody else, the defense is even going to bother to learn what their name is. Nothing against them, but you don't keep 5 guys like that on an offense that needs production from pass catchers when none of them can be relied on yet to be productive pass catchers. So my thought is that, whoever the last 1 or 2 tight ends will end up either on the practice squad or just cut loose. Because it makes no sense to have 4 corners, 2 of them injured, 1 a rookie, and 5 tight ends, none of which is particularly scary at first glance. That's why this is still in flux.
What does Trevor think of the big acquisition the Titans made today, Ernest Jones, and the fact that they pretty much gave up nothing in order to get him, plus his thoughts from the Seattle preseason game? New Orleans. We'll get to that coming up next. Here on the program, Trevor, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. First, let's talk Window Nation, though. I love Window Nation. People are talking about Window Nation. In fact, their customer, Vicky, says we couldn't be happier. It was a great experience. And I know Trev, he used Window Nation as well. Window Nation's about value. And this August, they've got a great value during their anniversary sale. Buy 2 windows, you'll get 2 windows for free. There's no limit on how much you could save. Plus, don't pay anything for 24 months. Act now and get an extra $250 credit. Again, buy 2 windows, get 2 free, pay nothing, and get a $250 credit on top of it. Hurry up, because the sale ends August 31st, and we're getting towards the end of the month. So schedule a fast in-home estimate right now at 866-90NATION or at windownation.com. That's 866-90NATION, windownation.com. Stillman and Company, the news of the day for the Titans. They have acquired Ernest Jones. The Rams, a leading tackler, their defensive captain, wore the green dot last year. 145 tackles, a Pro Football Focus grade better than Roquan Smith's. And not only did they acquire him, but they acquired him for nothing. They traded a 2026 fifth-round pick and received a 2026 sixth-round pick as part of the deal. Trevor Maddich joins us, presented by Houston Clinic Orthopedics, when experience matters. Trev, on paper, I love everything about this deal. There's got to be a catch, right?
No, there isn't. I mean, I'm not sure what it would take to keep him beyond this year, but for this year, this is an enormous, fortuitous gift that just fell into the Titans' lap, because they need not just depth at inside linebacker, they need starting caliber people. And Jones was not only the starter for the Rams, but he was their team captain. He wore the green dot. He's a great leader, and he played exceptionally well in the playoffs as well. I mean, go back to the Super Bowl against the Bengals. He was all over the field. He hit the quarterback 3 times from the middle linebacker position. He had 7 tackles. Think about that. He hit the quarterback 3 times from the middle linebacker position. This is a guy that can blitz. The Titans love to blitz under this new regime. So he can do a whole lot of things for him. Against the Lions, I think it was last year, in the wild card game, he had 9 tackles, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble.
Good
right?
God.
So
why are they trading this guy?
Player.
He's making $3.1 million this year. And I understand, hey, he wants a new contract and, hey, they may not be able to pay him. And that's their business, not mine. But Trevor, I look at the Rams as a team that probably looks at themselves and thinks they can contend for the Super Bowl. So why would you not play him on an expiring contract and then let him leave as a free agent?
That's a very good question. And the Titans are about to find out if there's something there. Maybe there is some sort of a physical ailment that made them more willing to do that. I don't think that there would be some sort of an attitude problem, because he was a team captain,
right,
for goodness sake, this last year. And on top of that, he has made it clear that he did not ask for a trade. Now, maybe his agent and stuff like that was talking with the Rams, et cetera, but he did not go public on his social media and demand a trade. And normally, if a guy has an attitude problem, he'd be out there talking about that all the time, right? And so I don't know why they would let him go rather than let him play. Maybe because they knew they weren't going to re-sign him for whatever reason, and they wanted to get something for him, at least something. And when you look at him, he's been incredibly productive for a guy who's not terribly athletic. When he came out of college at South Carolina, I mean, he led South Carolina in tackling 2 years in a row. And he came out with the book in the draft evaluations that he was great leader, great tackler, great middle linebacker, not terribly fast, not terribly nimble. So in pass coverage, he could be a liability, things like that. But if you play him like the Rams did, up near the line of scrimmage, have him fire a lot on pass plays rather than make him cover, things like that, you can disguise the liabilities and turn his strengths into superpowers. And so I think there's a lot of upside here, and I can't see anything that's a downside.
Trevor Maddich with us on the program. How much better does he make the Titans, given that Jack Gibbons probably wasn't the best option at inside linebacker? We know what they have on the defensive line. We know what they have in the secondary if they're healthy. How much of an impact, in your opinion, is this move for how good this defense could be?
It is enormous. One is the green dot. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he wears it. We'll see. He's got to learn the system. But, Kenneth Murray, not a guy necessarily you'd want to wear the green dot. Not that he can't do it, but you just want to turn him loose. Just have him look at the guy calling the defensive signals and find out where he's supposed to attack and just go get him, right? That's what you really want from Kenneth Murray. Jack Gibbons is a solid depth piece. The minute you put him in as a starter, now it's a different evaluation of him. And I think he's kind of lacking. He's below average as a starter, I believe. He's okay, but as a depth piece, he's phenomenal. He's great. He's experienced. He's great character. He knows what to do, and he does it at a very predictable level. So I like that. So what this does, it not only elevates the starting caliber of the inside linebackers, it not only elevates the caliber of leadership and experience, it also creates depth because Gibbons now is a backup.
Trevor Maddich with us on the program. Trevor, what were your takeaways from the New Orleans performance?
You know, the New Orleans performance, the offense was phenomenal. You know, the starting offense did a great job. I think part of it had to do with some of the play calling. I don't know that they really game planned for it, but I think that Brian Callahan wanted his guys to get some runway. In other words, to pick up some speed and get going. So they ran a pretty good variety of running plays that were well run and very well blocked. I mean, I was very impressed with how the offensive line performed in the first couple series when the starters were in there. And then you know, even when backup quarterback Mason Rudolph was in there, the starting offensive line was in for a bit. So that was really good. I thought that the quarterback, Will Levis, looked great. He was confident. He was accurate. And you know what? He stood back there for days with protection, calm and confident. And I thought that we haven't seen that for a while from Titans quarterbacks because they haven't been able to stand back in the pocket confident. Normally they drop back, and by the time they get to the back of their drop, there's a couple of pass rushers right there with them, and they're running around so they don't get smashed. And so it's just really impressive that they did that. They ran a couple of really creative screens, very creative screens. So I think they pulled a few things out that you normally wouldn't see in a preseason game because I think they kind of wanted to have some success. And lo and behold, they did. They went down and scored 10 quick points. And I was very impressed with that.
Trevor, I have a hot take. I wonder what you think of this. I think the best player on offense is Tony Pollard. And I think when they play Chicago in 2 weeks, they need to draw up the offense to run behind Tony Pollard. Is that, I know fans want to throw the ball. I know we got to see what Levis is, all that kind of stuff. But would you be doing the same thing if your only goal was to beat Chicago?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's not just that I would hand the ball to Pollard. He ran the ball really well. All the backs ran the ball well for the most part until we got later in the game. But Pollard also had some really nice plays on passes where he took a short pass and had nice runs out of it. Mm-hmm. And that tells you what they want to do. It's not just a matter of carries for Pollard or the running back. It's touches. And Pollard looked so light on his feet. He looked so explosive when he would get the ball, turn, and burst, right? And so when you put him out in open space doing that, he gets to get into the open field and deal with smaller defenders rather than having to bust through the front seven in order to get into the open field. And so I think we saw a taste of how they're going to use Pollard, and I totally agree. Right now, as high as the potential that Will Levis has, you don't want to be counting on Will Levis right now. You want him to continue to grow, continue to learn the offense, continue to become a more experienced, is the word I would use, quarterback before you put all the pressure on him. And the better the offensive line can block, the better Pollard and those backs can run, the better they can take short passes and take them for long gains, the less pressure is on Levis, and he can grow at his own pace instead of being forced to go faster than they want him to.
Trevor, what do you make of the Malik Willis trade? They pick up a 7th in the draft, but I do think Willis is going to back up in Green Bay. He clearly improved. I'm not sure he improved that much, but what did you make of that?
I'm happy for him. I mean, everything I've seen from him, I've been just impressed. It's the way he's gone about his business, the way he has just eaten criticism rather than fight back at it. He just goes out there and acts like a pro, and he has gotten better. I think Green Bay is getting a guy that has gotten several years of development now, who they can continue to develop, and he's an upgrade over their backups, for goodness sake. And I think he has a chance to go start anew. It's a quarterback-friendly system. It's a quarterback-friendly coach, and so is this one. But he's not going to a place that it's going to be difficult for him to continue to flourish. So I'm really happy for him. I think for the Titans, they made the right decision because they've got a quarterback in Mason Rudolph as a backup in his 20s. He's a young guy, And he is considered by most people I've talked to as one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL. And truth be told, if you had to win one game right now, just one game today, right now, between Levis and Rudolph, I'd put Rudolph in there. Now, they won't do that because it's Levis's job, and they're going to grow him because he has a higher ceiling than Rudolph seems to have. But I am really happy with Mason Rudolph as the backup quarterback, and if he had to play, I'd feel pretty good about that. So I think both teams got a good result from this trade.
Did I tell you, by the way, when you told me that on Sunday that you thought that Rudolph was better, that if you had to win one game, you'd go with Rudolph over Levis? Did I tell you that
one
I
game
think
today?
Right. Did I tell you that I think Rudolph stinks?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that I felt that way.
Yeah, no, you do. But I'm saying one today, and it's a lot of it is because of the experience that he has.
Sure.
That Levis, hasn't had. Levis has never had the experience, with the exception of a few quarters here and there, of NFL regular season behind a decent offensive line where he can actually run a system that he knows. Right? Rudolph has that under his belt right now. So Levis will get it, but he doesn't have it yet.
Trevor, as always, great stuff. We appreciate you. Presented by Houston Clinic, where the Phoenix Experience matters. Enjoy week 1 of college football. I will have questions about college on Tuesday, Trev.
Can't wait. Thanks, Jared.
Yep, Trevor Matich, who, by the way, made headlines over the weekend. I don't know if you guys saw this, for comparing Georgia Tech to the U.S. women's soccer team. And the amount of people, it was an awful announcing article, the amount of people that clicked it and were like, he actually makes a pretty good point. Actually, that was pretty good. Very, very much enjoy watching Trevor. I don't know if you guys saw him on the game on Saturday, but I did enjoy watching Trevor break it down.
I told Trev he went viral this weekend.
Oh, yeah? What'd he say about that?
He said, really? What'd I say?
Oh,
so he didn't really.
615-737-1025. Today's roster cut down day, but the Titans have already made the trade of Ernest Jones. And I do not want to lose sight of the big picture. So we will get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. And let's give something away right now. Be caller 5 at 615-737-1025. And you will be going to go see Dierks Bentley at Bridgestone Arena on Saturday night. It's exciting. Be caller 5, 615-737-1025, and enjoy the Dierks Bentley Show. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. I'm going to give the Titans credit. They did not make roster cut down day boring by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm going to give them credit because even though I had never heard of Ernest Jones before yesterday, when it came out that he was possibly on the market and Titan fans are saying, hey, Jared, what do you think about making this move for this guy? And what do you think? And I feel like I watch enough Rams football. Like, not that I'm jumping and, trying my hardest to go get we got to see what the Rams did. I'm not worried about that. But I feel like the NFL for the last 6 or 7 years, they've really tried to make the Rams a powerful brand because they want LA to care about the NFL. And unfortunately for them, it doesn't seem like LA does. But thus, they stick them on TV a lot, and they've made the playoffs and whatever. And this guy was their leading tackler a year ago. He lit it up in the playoffs against Detroit. And yet, I never heard of him. But I'm going to take what the paper says right now as my overarching opinion. So on paper, this looks like a great move. And then comes roster cut down day. And yeah, there's kind of the sentimental ones where we spent so much time talking about Farley and so much time talking about Malik. And it's like those guys are gone. And so people are making a deal about that. Then there's the 5 tight ends. There's the 4 corners on the roster. It was 4 corners on the roster. 4 corners on the roster. And Jalen Duncan, the swing tackle, if he has to play, Lord, pray for the Titans and all of those things. But I don't want to lose sight of what I think is the big picture here. And what I think is the big picture when it comes to the Titans and the move they made today with Ernest Jones. And forget about, I talked about this when it came to keeping Malik. I said, you're really going to sit there and agonize over, oh, no, who do we keep? Jaron Christian or Caleb or Cedric or Caleb Murphy? Who do we keep? Who cares? It doesn't make a difference either way. They both stink. The big news is the Ernest Jones trade. And again, on paper, the Titans might actually have pretty good defense. Now, I'm not one of these people that gets up there and says, and puts their hand in the air and says, this is going to be a top 5 defense and I'm not doing that. But on paper, they have a Pro Bowl defensive tackle who needs to start sacking the quarterback a little bit more, but maybe he can. And he's still a 2-time Pro Bowl DT, so they've got that. The other defensive tackle is the Outland Trophy winner. They got a pass rusher that's a 10-sack-a-year guy, and he is now a year removed from the torn ACL. They've got 2 corners that have played in the Super Bowl, including one of the best corners in the NFL. Again, on paper, they don't say L'Jarius Sneed's knees are going to be a problem because in the past, even with the problems with the knees, L'Jarius Sneed has played 17 games. On paper, they've got the LA Rams leading tackler who sacked the quarterback 4.5 times last year, who is a green dot guy and a team captain, now at middle linebacker. The one thing we talked about when Jerome Baker came in for a visit, and I didn't even love Jerome Baker, but I was hopeful, hey, please go get an inside backer that can wear the green dot. And they said, no, it'll be okay. I don't think they believed they could get this kind of guy, but it worked out in their favor, similar to DeAndre Hopkins last year. Then they've got Quandre Diggs, who is a steady, plays all the game safety. Now, I don't know what to say about on paper with Jamal Adams, because even the paper says Jamal Adams is completely unreliable. But Jamal Adams is in there. On paper, this looks like a good defense. Now, we have no idea about a rookie play caller who has never ran a defense before. And again, you need Snee's knees to hold up. You need Awuzi's calf to hold up. You need Sweat to stay away from the parties. Simmons needs to realize the potential. And you notice when I talked about on paper, I didn't mention Kenneth Murray because Kenneth Murray on paper sucks. Pro Football Focus says he sucks. His statistics say he sucks. The lack of confidence the Chargers have in him say he sucks. So I didn't mention him. But in training camp, Kenneth Murray has looked pretty good. And this is what I say, though, about like Sweat and Murray, where there's some concerns there. And everyone's like, but in camp, he's looked great. And in this, he's right. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to say, well, we like the other guys because of what they have on paper. We like Awuzie and Snead because of what they've done on paper, but they haven't done anything in camp. And then we're dismissing what Kenneth Murray's done on paper because we like what he's done in camp. You're only taking the good of what everybody does. But on paper, it looks like they can have a pretty good defense. And today was a very good day for the Titans if this guy is as advertised. Again, I'm not expecting him to be Ray Lewis. I'm not expecting him to be Junior Seau. I'm not expecting him to be Brian Urlacher. But he might be able to be Randall Godfrey. And going into today, Jack Gibbons, no disrespect, he was never going to be that. Gibbons is a backup. And he fits a perfect spot now. Backup with the Titans. So while, again, I don't understand why the Titans would keep 5 tight ends, and I think their swing tackle situation is disastrous if it comes to that, I had to say, I think today's pretty good for the Titans. And not only that, they gave up basically nothing in order to get him. What I think is the equivalence of a 7th round draft pick in order to get a $3 million linebacker who, again, had a higher Pro Football Focus grade than Roquan Smith. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We're to your phones, 615-737-1025. Plus, I got some good news, and I do have kind of a negative take to get into that again, it's not my take, but it is worth sharing. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 through the game.
I don't think this was well. Partially, it could have been for the Chance Campbell, but they are not sold on Jack Gibbons. That's why you go out and make this move because this guy's a player. He's a guy that fit well. Obviously, at one point in time with the Rams, he was part of their Super Bowl winning team. He played a lot within the last 3 years. This is a move, not necessarily for Chance. I mean, for Campbell, but it's a move to me that they're not sold on Jack Gibbons being their inside backer as a starter. That's what this has nothing to do with. I don't think this has as much to do with Campbell than it is Jack Gibbons.
That was Derek earlier today talking about the move. I don't think it had anything to do with Campbell. I think it had everything to do with Gibbons. So we will get to your phone, 615-737-1025. But Indy Ben texts into the text line, Ian. You know the Titans make a trade. Even I think this is a really good trade.
Indy
for
Ben
the
has
Titans.
found a way to poo-poo the trade.
Well, Indy Ben brings up a point, and I don't want to knock it. Indy Ben says, Titans seem to be somewhat of a fan-run organization as of late. Just heard some random fan saying yesterday the Titans should trade for Jones on the radio show, and here we are, LOL. And I got to be honest, again, I'm not the biggest Indy Ben fan in the world, and you know Indy Ben, he's not the biggest fan of me. But Indy Ben is kind of right. Like, it's kind of a trend I've noticed. Titans ownership listens to their fans way too much. I noticed it with the way they turned on Vrabel. They turned on Vrabel the same way the fans turned on Vrabel. They lose the Philadelphia game, and they fired John Robinson on Tuesday. On Monday of that show, I said to Caroline, because this is when Caroline was still on the show, and I said to Caroline, I go, you do realize, like, in more stable and less stable organizations, because I thought the Titans were a well-run organization at that point in time, I said, you realize, like, in other organizations, get a coach fired. Now, I'm thinking like defensive coordinator or secondary coach or something like that. The same way the Colts game last year was the kind of game that gets a special teams coach fired. You know, in these organizations with the owners, they pick up the phone, they get mad, fire somebody, and they do. I didn't think they were going to fire the GM. And the Titans swear up and down it wasn't about the A.J. Brown trade. But it just happens to be they fired him while they were sitting in first place after A.J. spanked the goalpost, which is something that fans would do, not something that a well-run organization would do. So I'm not knocking the Ernest Jones trade because I knock the things that I feel like are necessary to knock when there is something to knock. And I just don't see anything with this that makes me want to say they need to knock this trade. But Indy Ben's not wrong that it does feel like Titans ownership has been listening to the fans way too much. The fans of the Titans seem to always get their way, and always getting their way seems to also involve not winning, which I am tired of. Again, free agency, you got these unnamed execs in the Athletics saying things like, yeah, I don't really see the plan there. I mean, they spent a bunch of money, but I don't, what are you trying to do here? But it's because the owners like, go spend the money. And like we talk about Carolina and the way they're run, and to me, they're so incredibly transparent with how they're run. They're run by a moron. And I'm not saying the Titans are run by morons, but I am saying Carolina is. And so when they do something stupid, I'm like, there's not like a backup theory to this. It's just how stupid they are. I hope the Titans aren't that way. But this does feel like a fan trade because I didn't even know who this guy was until Titan fans were like, we need Ernest Jones. And here we are. The Titans got Ernest Jones. The Jets are kind of run that way, and I don't like it. Not saying the Titans are the Jets, just saying I don't like that kind of philosophy. And it does feel like Titans Twitter was results again. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, 615-737-1025. Scott has been waiting patiently. He's up next on the program. Scott, thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, how's it going, guys?
Go ahead, Scott.
Can you hear me? Go ahead.
Go.
Yep, I'm here. So 8 days from now, on the 4th of September, the rosters have to be set in stone. Like the 53 has to be absolutely set. So between now and then, do you say that the Titans make minimal, moderate, or maximum moves back and forth with players in and out?
I appreciate your call. Ian, I don't know what he's referring to on September 4th. I mean, isn't the Chicago game the 8th?
Yeah, I don't know. Is there some type of roster deadline? Something else that needs to be solidified?
I don't know.
Is that the first start of the league year, therefore they're paid? Is that where that starts? I'm not sure exactly what he was referring to on the September 4th deadline cut line thing.
Right. Now, that is the Wednesday of the Chicago game, and that's when they got to start getting ready for Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to answer your question, there's what they should do and what I think they will do. Which one do you want first?
Should.
Yeah. I think they should be very, very active on the waiver wire. And not just the wire, because there is kind of a little caveat to this. Players that are veteran players that have been released, they don't go through waivers. So Chris Hubbard, for instance, who was released by the 49ers, is not going through the waiver wire or anything. You don't have to claim him and somebody else. You just can sign Chris Hubbard. And I think they should. But I do think they need to be making claims. Because, again, by my count, I've got 8 guys that I think are practice squad players. And the only one that Trevor, and I ran through them with Trevor, and the only one that he said, yeah, I don't know if that guy's a practice squad player. The only guy he had on that was Otis Reese, who he said he really liked. Other than that, Duncan, Ojukwu, Rupchich, Brown, Reese, Odukoya, Chestnut, and Murphy, I think they are all practice squad players. And you can't win with practice squad players. You know, I was wondering about Kayvon Wallace. Remember that safety the Titans signed out of nowhere last year?
Mm-hmm.
Who, showed a little bit. I was wondering, are guys like that going to get released that you can bring in and add? And I think they should go in there and add them and bring them and everything else.
Just seeing 4 corners, Snead, Awuzie, McCreary, Brownlee Jr. Just, I don't know, makes me nervous.
Yeah, you can't do that, especially when the first 2 guys are hurt.
You can't you can't roll with 4. So they will be, you would think, adding at least 1 corner defensive back, but I don't know.
One texter into the text line says, bro, they have never had a top 5 wide receiver in the entire history of the Titans/Oilers franchise. And as soon as they get one, they shipped him off. That right there is a says fireball offense, but I think it's fireball offense. Going back to Titans ownership, just firing Robinson in the middle of the season. First of all, let me tell you guys this. You guys are not going to believe this because you don't want to hear it. But I have it on pretty good authority that the Titans ownership was all thumbs up on that A.J. Brown trade. And they still believe that they had to make that move. That's just what I've been told. And I feel pretty confident in saying that the way you feel about the A.J. Brown trade and the way they feel about the A.J. Brown trade is not the same. At all. David from Watertown says, so what's the good news you promised? Did I promise good news, Ian?
I don't know. Not that I can think of.
I don't. I mean, I like the Jones trade. I guess that's the good news one way or another. One texter says, I know L'Jarius Sneed hasn't practiced with the team in the preseason, but do you think that he'll practice a little during the week leading into the games, like at least the walkthroughs? Well, I mean, he should be able to go through the walkthroughs. You're not running
walkthroughs,
hard
yes, it would think.
and
Yeah.
that. Will he practice during the week? I don't know. Here's what I think they're going to do. I think they're going to say, you've got DJ Moore, we'll see you on Sunday. Or you've got Roma Dunze, we will see you on Sundays. That's what I think they're going to do. Now, the one I'm worried about is the other guy, Awuzie, because it's a calf strain, and I know a calf strain's a couple weeks. It's been 6 weeks or whatever it's been, camp, and he hasn't practiced. So they're going to stick him out there against Chicago, and he's going to have one practice or whatever on under his belt. Crazy. Ryan says your take that Titans fans that your take that the Titans are listening to the fans is ridiculous. We surely didn't want Byard gone. We didn't want Henry gone. We didn't want Latham drafted. Getting Jones should be a fantastic move to shore up a position of need. I'm not a Rand fan, but he is starting to make enough moves that I'm actually open to the idea that he's not a trash general manager. Well, those are a bunch of different thoughts. But let me say this. The fact that the Titans would have taken Joe Alt over J.C. Latham when after they took Latham, this was Bill Callahan's favorite lineman, makes me think that, hey, ownership sat there and said, we feel more comfortable with Alt, take it. The other thing is to say we didn't want Byard gone, we didn't want Henry gone. Yes, you did. Not all of you. I would argue not most of you. But the loudest of you in the text line and Twitter, you wanted Byard gone. You wanted Henry gone. Ian, how much do we talk about we're not going to be any good anyways. We should tank for the number 1 pick and we should get whatever draft choices we can for anybody on the team.
I mean, there was some of that. I don't remember a whole lot of people saying they should trade Derrick Henry, though.
Oh, my God. I asked Derrick Henry about it because that's all people were talking about. And Derrick got all pissed off about it. Robbie and Joe, it was they lost like the first game.
Well, fans were saying they should trade Henry?
Yes.
I'm not sure I totally remember
the
that.
amount of texts and calls and tweets and everything that were like, we just need to get whatever we can get. I'm like, so you're going to stick the young quarterback out there by himself with no offensive line and no Derrick Henry. But we might be able to get a 4th-round pick, Jared. There are people pissed now that they didn't take that deal from the Ravens. Yes, you guys, yes. And you guys celebrated like it was Christmas when Byard got traded for a 5th and a 6th-round pick. Oof. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. We'll get to some of your phones. I do have to defend a narrative that I don't like, because I think it is a narrative that is not representative of reality. And this show, we criticize, but we're also fair. We'll get to that next here on Stillman and Company. First, I want to tell you about Twice Daily. I absolutely love Twice Daily, and you should too. Hit that made-to-order kiosk or use the app. Get every meal of the day. You can go right to Twice Daily. They got everything. It's great. At Twice Daily, they've got a burger built for you. Try their new classic or jalapeno ranch or Titans burger. They're made to order so you can fix them the way you like them with your choice of cheese, veggies, and other tasty toppings. And if you're looking for a burger deal, Twice Daily has that too. Get their $6 meal deal, including any made-to-order burger, potato wedges, and your choice of a 20-ounce Coke or Pepsi. There is no better way to get more meal for your money than Twice Daily. Twice Daily. What are you craving?
Titans general manager Rand Carthon continues to spend his third quarter in the broadcast booth. So where are you with this process of getting this roster right now down to that number of 53?
Well, we've been locked in a room, the past 3 or 4 days, looking at all the potential guys that could come free. And our staff, helmet on.
That's good coverage right there. If you're going to kick it, you got to keep it from inside the 30, right?
How about that? Caleb Farley with the play.
Nice.
Congratulations to Caleb Farley for having at least one kind of highlight before being cut today by the Tennessee Titans. And poor Caleb Farley, that guy's been through everything. Football-wise, off the field, losing both parents, tragically losing both parents. But I have to address a narrative, and I hope that Farley, finds whatever he's looking for in life. I really do. I didn't like the pick when it happened. I thought it was ridiculous. I compared it to cryptocurrency. I remember the show the next day after the draft. I remember Chris Sanders didn't like the pick. And if Chris Sanders doesn't like it, that tells you something. But I remember the next day, and I said, I got buddies that do cryptocurrency. And they're like, bro, you've got to get in on all the crypto. And I'm like, how's it work? And they're like, well, the more people buy it, the more it goes up. I said, so it doesn't really have a value to it. It's not like owning stock in McDonald's where you technically own McDonald's. No. It's just there. Okay. And I said that day, I said, no thank you on crypto and no thank you on Caleb Farley. And maybe my friends will have private islands and their own airplanes and everything else. And I'll just have the luck to go visit. But I'll stick to real estate and the stock market and things like that. So I didn't like the Farley pick from the jump. But with Farley being released and Malik Willis being traded yesterday, by the way, to be a backup quarterback, not that I would want Malik to be my backup, but he is actually going to get a promotion by being traded. Titans fans on Twitter have been pumping their chest about how bad of a GM John Robinson was. Oh, John Robinson was horrible. Oh, it was so bad. You mean when he won 61% of his games? Was that bad? By the way, Bill Walsh took over the 49ers. They were in terrible shape when Walsh took them over, similar to Robinson taking over the Titans when they were 3-13 and had come off of back-to-back seasons holding the number 2 pick and the number 1 pick. And Bill Walsh won 61% of his games too. So I put out on Twitter today when Titans fans were talking about just how bad John Robinson was. Oh, it was a horrible 6 years, 4 of which you made the playoffs. You didn't make the playoffs like that with Rustin Webster, I can promise you that. And I said John Robinson was a good general manager who started making some really bad decisions. I didn't like the Caleb Farley pick. I didn't like the Julio Jones trade. I bitched about that, and I bitched about them signing Jadeveon Clowney, and you guys got mad at me. But what I laugh at is I did criticize those moves when they happened, and I was right. And I criticized those moves because, to me, you could see them coming a mile away, and you could see that they were bad. But that doesn't just ruin the totality, that just doesn't ruin in totality. It doesn't ruin the totality of John Robinson's tenure. He won 61% of his games. They went to the playoffs 4 out of 6 years. They won the first playoff game in 14 years. They got to an AFC title game. They had the number 1 seed. That is usually the sign of a pretty good general manager. Let me tell you this. Floyd didn't win 61% of his games. Floyd didn't go to the Super Bowl every year. And just like I don't think it's Thomas Dimitrov's fault, the general manager of the Falcons, that they blew a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl, I also don't think it's John Robinson's fault that Ryan Tannehill threw 3 picks in the Bengals playoff game. John Robinson was a good general manager, guys. And I'm not one to sit here and tell you, oh, hey, let's talk about what happened as opposed to let's talk about what's coming up next. But I want to nip this in the tush right now. This idea that he was a bad general manager. And then every time somebody says he was a bad general manager, I just reply back and I'm just like, he won 61% of his games. And apparently that doesn't count. Apparently the fact that the guy won 61% of his games doesn't count. Apparently the back-to-back division titles, and they were on pace for the third. I actually blame his firing as to why they didn't win the division in 2022. And part of me thinks the reason why they fired him is because they knew that they could do it after the Philadelphia game because people were mad about A.J. Brown spanking the goalpost. And they knew that if they won the division, which it looked like they were going to do, it'd be really hard to fire a general manager after he wins 3 divisions in a row. And you want to know why it's really hard to fire a general manager if the guy wins 3 divisions in a row? Because it's freaking hard to win divisions in the NFL. And yet all I hear now, and these are the same people that when I criticized the Julio trade, when I criticized Caleb Farley's selection, when I criticized Clowney, these are the same people that were like, I trust John Robinson over you. But again, not everybody is right all the time. And for those that are almost wrong all the time, a broken clock is right twice a day. But this idea that the general manager wins games, but he's not a good general manager is wild to me. That's the only job the general manager has. He doesn't balance a budget. He doesn't sell tickets. He doesn't any of these things. He is supposed to win. And John Robinson won. And as is the case with almost all of these guys, eventually they stop winning. And so if we just look at the guy and the end of his tenure and say, well, you know, that guy, then you would say that Bill Belichick wasn't very good or that Don Shula wasn't very good. But again, the totality, the word I had a hard time getting out earlier, the totality of the work says Bill Belichick's a pretty good coach. So this idea that, well, I mean, Caleb Farley, how could you believe again, I thought it was stupid at the time too. And what I think really happened was if you read the article Joe wrote about Derrick Henry before his last game with the Titans, Joe talked about Blake Bedingfield, who was the director of college scouting at the time, that Blake Bedingfield was the one that was banging the table for Derrick Henry, and that Mike Mularkey and John Robinson were like, eh. And then they had a 3rd, 2nd round pick, and they decided to use it on Derrick Henry because Blake was so adamant that they would do that. I think the biggest problem that John Robinson had, and this is why I would give him a second chance if I was an owner in the NFL, especially if I, don't have to pay him that much, and the Titans are paying him, on the back end. But he got too arrogant. Robinson got too arrogant. I kept asking him a question before the 2022 draft, the one in which got him in a lot of trouble with the fans. I kept asking him a question about the 2019 draft. The Simmons, A.J. Brown, Nate Davis, Amani Hooker, David Long Jr., that draft. And finally in that press conference, he said something like, Jared, why do you keep asking about the 19 draft? I'm like, because it was a good draft. AKA, what did you do in 19 that you didn't do in 2020 and 2021 when those drafts sucked? Somebody tell me. And I guess we'll never know the answer to that. But I will mention this. How much, when they drafted J.C. Latham, a very unpopular pick around here, how much were we told, hey, Bill Callahan loves J.C. Latham? Now think about the offensive line coaches John Robinson had with Mike Vrabel when it came to Dylan Ravens and Isaiah Wilson and those kind of guys. I think the biggest problem with Robinson is that he really thought he could do it all. And the firing Mike Mularkey and living to tell about it, I thought was probably in the long term bad for John Robinson. Just like I think the biggest problem with Mike Vrabel is that he thought he could do it all. But everybody has flaws. And so just because the end of it was messy, granted, again, he got fired. They were in first place. That does not mean that he was a bad general manager. Floyd got fired too. He was a good general manager. I don't even like Jeff Fisher. But the results that Jeff Fisher had as coach of the Titans, you have to give him his due. He belongs in the team's Hall of Fame, no matter how much he lies about how much credit he deserves. So this narrative that John Robinson sucked, this has got to stop because it does not reflect reality, and it's not right. I mean, I think we should be having discussions about whether or not John Robinson ends up in the team's Hall of Fame because I don't know if you know this, but in Nashville, they haven't had a lot of success. And he was the architect of about half of it. Again, the other guy who I definitely believe belonged in that Hall of Fame, he's in it. Rustin Webster and Mike Reinfeldt not so much. So enough with the bitching about Robinson. Again, the guy got fired. They were in first place. Give me a break. And I actually believe not only did he deserve to finish out the year, but I think he would have deserved another year. And I know you guys are like, oh, no, make it stop. Make it stop. But what if he pulled another 2019 out of his ass? And you can't say he couldn't do it. He had 2 drafts that were all-timers, 19 and 16. He drafted 3 all-pros in the first, second, and third round at 16. Again, if I owned the team, Robinson would have finished the year and he would have gotten 2023. And then after that, if the results were what they've been now, then he'd be fired. But stop telling me he was a bad GM and the guy who's won 6 games and they fired the coach and signed Andre Dillard as a good GM, because that's what you want to believe. One texter says he wasn't a bad general manager, but you have to agree that he's a big part of the reason why the Titans are in the situation they're in. Yeah. Again, bad decisions. Good coaches make bad. Again, let's use Belichick as the example here. I'm using the most extreme example because nobody will tell you that Bill Belichick was a bad coach. Nobody. You hear some of these comments from certain players. You know, I think it was Asante Samuel that came out and was like, Bill, we had Tom. And there's probably a lot of truth in that. But it's like Bill Belichick said in the roast of Tom Brady. There was all this talk of who had all the success, me or Tom, or was it because of Tom or was it because of me? But it wasn't. It was both of us because of me. And everybody laughed. But it is kind of true. How many coaches would have the balls to bench a $100 million quarterback to play Tom Brady? But I use Belichick as the example here because nobody will say Belichick was a bad coach. Have you looked at the Patriots roster? You don't think that was Belichick's fault? Tyquan Thornton in the second round, Cole Strange in the first round. You don't think it was Belichick's fault that Mac Jones made the Pro Bowl his first year and then he hired a defensive coordinator to be the offensive coordinator and it helped ruin the kid? So, I mean, you guys, just unbelievable. Whew. I guess Belichick sucks too, huh? Because the last couple of years were a disaster. Or will we remember Belichick as a good coach? It's the same way Robinson was. Won 61% of his games. And at the end of the day, that's the general manager's job. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Generation than mine that is starting to prove to be the problem. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. First, though, let's talk about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. Those guys are great. They take great care of my home. They were out at Ian's home today. And guess what? Summer's over, and it's time to get ready for school to start. And even though the kids are already back at school, you can leave the homework to Hiller. This month, enjoy back-to-school savings with offers like a $99 drain cleaning, $500 off select high-efficiency HVAC systems, $500 off new tankless water heaters, and $1,000 off whole home generators. Visit happyhiller.com today for details. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. My guys, proud supporters of the Preds of Vols and Vandy. Hiller, call the Happy Face truck today.
Coach Prime is showing he is not ready for prime time, Greeny. I find this whole thing to be disgraceful. Dion may want to talk about love and joy, and that's been the cornerstone of what he seems to be spewing out. But treating reporters like this seems like we're in some autocratic country. This is not America, and the fact that it's in his contract is really even more absurd. But don't forget, he did this at Jackson State. This is a trait of Deion Sanders. He wants to have it his way, and I find him to be a bully and a hypocrite. And quite frankly, as someone who has been a fan of his throughout his entire career, even at Colorado, I am mortified by his actions.
Deion Sanders is a crybaby. I mean, I'm just going to tell you straight up. Deion Sanders is a crybaby, and he's not the only one. You know, for years, we were always told, our generation, I don't know, what do I count as, Ian? Gen X?
I'm not really sure.
Millennial?
You might be an older millennial. I'm not exactly sure the cutoff.
Whatever it may be, my generation has always been blamed for everything. You guys are the laziest. You guys are the most entitled. You guys are the softest. You guys are every time. It's my generation's fault. And I will say this. I think the kids today probably a little bit more sensitive than my generation. Maybe they could toughen up a little bit. But I don't think my generation's the problem. I think in college football, we've learned it's the generation above mine that is the problem. In two separate instances, on two different sides of the country, in two different conferences, with two coaches that do not win enough anymore, that do things two different ways. They both can't handle any criticism. We all know about Coach Prime at Colorado, 3-0 in Deion Mania to start last year, only to finish 4-8. And he got all the positive pub he wanted, sit downs with 60 minutes, any interview, any network, anytime. He got it, Sports Person of the Year. And then they didn't win. And all of a sudden, people started asking questions. Well, now, Deion is not interested in any negativity, period. At the end of the day, a guy is who he is. And all I can think of when I think of Deion and all of the antics and all of the bull crap that's happened in the last year since they started 3-0 is 30 years ago when Deion, upset because he's got thin skin, dumped a vat of ice water on Tim McCarver, and Tim McCarver looked at Deion and said, "You're a real man, Deion, a real man." And on the other side of the country is Dabo Swinney. And did you see the story about Dabo, who hasn't won anything that's mattered since 2019? Dabo's coach's show is no longer a call-in show. If you want to talk to Dabo, you have to tweet the show or email the show so they can screen the question ahead of time so Dabo won't lose his cool like he did last year with a caller when they were 4-4. And my society's the problem? My generation's the issue? No. I'm sorry. But if you're making multi-million dollars a year, you can handle a little heat. I take phone calls every day. But Dabo, who's making north of 10 million, can't. And what's the message to these, dare I call them, student athletes? What's the message to them when you tell them, I need everything you've got. I need you to push it past your toughest limit. I need you to sacrifice for the team. I need you to be willing to go outside your comfort zone. But, Coach, you won't take a phone call on the radio. Or, Coach, you won't talk to that mean columnist at the Denver Post. It's a freaking joke. And if you defend either man, Dan Orlovsky, it doesn't tell me about the situation. It tells me about you and your lack of understanding of what responsibility really is. When you're the head coach of college kids, I don't care if they're getting paid, they're still college kids. They didn't stop being 19. When you're the head coach of college kids, there is a responsibility that you have. But I guess you can't take any phone calls to talk about that because that would be too difficult. Because you can't, I guess, handle any of the criticism from the callers who are your own fans. What a joke. That's it for us. The 6 with Chase McCabe is next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game.